Meow, 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 meow.
While since Nuggy's fucked off again, Raiz, did you get your GGG shit yet, by the way?
No.
No. Oh.
Wait, that's the GGG shit?
That
What?
and
Spoilers.
Right.
Oh!
Mm.
You know who you owe that to?
No. Sorry, as far as people who want my t-shirts concerned, I only got one t-shirt. I didn't get two.
No, but
Right.
I don't know who got it, but I was the one to basically go to GGG and tell them, give us free shit.
To be fair, though, I've been bitching about t-shirts for a while.
I feel like everybody's been bitching. It's so weird. You gotta like, I'm like, wait, so to get a hoodie from you guys, I have to like buy multiple $240 supporter packs? And they're like, no, that's not gonna work. We're only gonna send one. I'm like, wait, what? So I have to like go to like another. Who do I go to for freaking merch? Ugh,
Wait, where can I get merch?
Hmm?
Can I get merch?
you're
No,
forgetting
no,
me.
only the cool kids are allowed the merch. Sorry.
What?
What?
Okay.
So, on that, I'd like to welcome everyone to Baeclast number 43. Today we're joined by the usual lineup of Octavian, Nuggy, and Raiz. Raiz, what have you been up to?
I've been doing the commentary for the Kammel Race. No spoilers. It was a pretty good one. That was pretty fun. Other than that, Death South, really tricky, man. After the occultist changes, CI and life, it's super tricky to pick what you want to go for. Armor's so strong. Vol Molten Shell is so strong. It's like really, really hard to give up on. Even if you have like an extra 1, 2, 3,000 energy shield, it just doesn't cut it, man. I'd much rather have 30,000, Vol Molten Shell. It's just so powerful. And then
What would
yeah,
you
I've
say
like,
is the minimum armor for that to like be worth?
dude, I mean anything that bypasses steel skin pretty much. So it's like 10,000 armor. So you get a granite iron skin and you're pretty much done. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much like I've always been a huge fan of armor. Everybody always screamed about reworks. I'm always like armor, use a granite, use all this stuff. And yeah, finally, they give me something to truly justify it because I much prefer the playstyle. Yeah, the only thing about Death South with life, because I ended up playing a live version, even though I made a CI build and it was a whole disaster with like switching out gear. It was pretty lucky. I wanted to alch a shield because I wanted to craft with a dense fossil, but I didn't have the alchemical primitive. So I just alched the shield and it was like 380 resist, 380 energy shield, like 2 resists, open suffix, sold it for 8 exalts. Like, oh, that's pretty good. Then I crafted a helmet and I got the wrong base from Baslo because it was a shaper helmet with like an enfeeble effect enchant. And so I was like, man, this decreases the chances of potentially getting energy shield. Might be tough. I got hypothermia with like 400 energy shield on like my 3rd dance. Sold that for 10x. Just really, really weird stuff. But even with those items, I thought, yeah, life's gonna be better. And the only problem is that you don't really have a good way of regenerating life. But I'm gonna experiment with like essence drain, and that should be enough. That should be like 700 regen. The build only has like 5,000 life and just a ton of armor and mitigation. So
Do you have to use a specific helmet?
no. I mean, I'm using a Despair Curse Effect helmet. Like Despair is really ridiculous. So if you get Curse Effect, it's so powerful. It literally more than doubles the damage of my setup. Obviously not against something like Shaper, but
one thing that might work for you, which I'm trying to fit into my build currently, is Hail Negator. Because it's just because I'm playing hybrid and I'm using the jewel where 50% of my damage bypasses ES goes to my life, and Hail Negator is 3% life in ES per jewel. So I was like, if I just slot this into my build, if I get hit, that's just 21%. So anything which cuts through Savage Hit, just bump full heal straight back up.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. There's a lot of different choices. Like you can definitely use Devouring. What is it? Devouring.
Diadem.
Yeah, because okay, so I'm using one of the new timeless jewels, the one that makes it so that you take 50% of the elemental damage as chaos damage, and you have 10% extra max chaos resistance. but that makes it so that all damage bypasses energy shield entirely.
Yeah.
All of it, except darkness. Darkness is apparently not a damage. I don't know. I mean, they probably made it in like a separate category, so it's unmitigatable. So I always have energy shield, and it really freaks me out because whenever my HP drops, I never notice it. So it's like, oh, that's been kind of tricky. But if you get a devouring diadem, then you've got EB, and then you can also fit in determination. So that's pretty cool. You can also use the, what's it called? Eber, I think.
Eber's Unification.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool helmet for chaos builds as well.
I mean, there's
it's
also
worth
just
it now,
the rare temple hats where you can get like fizz taken as and a massive life roll and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, the biggest thing is the curse effect for the despair or
Yeah.
enfeeble or temp chains, just whatever you can find.
Yeah.
You know, it's triple curse is so strong. Curses are still so nutty. They changed my entire outlook on Legion. When you've got that spear guy just like very slowly charging up and you're just running circles around him and eventually he throws. So comfortable.
Same thing was true of Betrayal. You know, I league started Betrayal with a like chill scaling occultist playing Vortex, and it made it so much easier to deal with all of the Haku slams and stuff when they were in slow motion.
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge difference. It's not even that much. It's like 30%, but you feel it so friggin' much. It's crazy.
To do my annoying Tarke talks about private league segment, that's the one thing where you notice the 20% haste. You only notice it on like the random Legion and Betrayal where it's just like, and you're like, oh, that was a bit. Yeah, okay. Yeah. What have you been up to there, Niggy?
I'm playing the cock a lot. It's been good. We started as assassin because that's good when you want to do cast and crit. Because the thing about cast and crit is you want to have high attack crit, and then any spell crit is obviously good as well because your spells want to crit as well. So that's also good. So every time you crit, you cast a spell, and you have like do that up to like 6 times a second, unless you have cooldown reduction. So that's pretty good. I'm using. So like this league's take on it is using the Doyani Voldual, and then I'm using ES on hit discipline. And so I'm hybrid, and hybrid always has issues, you know, sustaining both life pools. So I have a total of 50 hits per second on a single target.
Nice.
So that's pretty good. That's like 1500 ES, right? Per second. That stacks on top of all my regen and leech and all that. So it's really strong. I'll be like in the midst of a legion pack. I'll take like a 5k hit and it's like boom, instant, like absolutely instant. So that's really strong with double what are they called again? Cosprays. Yeah, so I'm doing that. There's like a cheaper version.
Wait,
Huh?
you're playing Frostbolt Ice Nova?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I
And
have
Ice Spear.
I have the greatest trick for you. But wait, are you using Vortex though?
Yeah. I do that as well. I just spam that.
Boy.
You
Yeah,
know, I know of your the mouse wheel trick.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Oh my god, that was like the most fun. So basically, you can like toggle a key binding for the mouse wheel and just insta cast Vortex all time. So you're just spamming that thing, and it just makes such a big difference.
Is that when you
It's
like
really fun.
unlock your mouse wheel, so it's just like infinitely spinning kind of
Oh,
thing?
I don't even have that. You know, my mouse wheel is just like a normal one. I don't even have to unlock it to like scroll it, and yeah, it was so much fun.
I wouldn't even dare doing that. The infinite spin. This league, kick for performing too many actions.
Yeah.
I've actually, is that against terms of service? I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Nah.
No, I even remember writing them an email, and they were like, "It just counts as every."
What are you gonna do?
Click. It's just much. It's just quicker, you know.
Yeah.
It's because like I actually got sent a mouse with like one of the unlockable thingies. I don't normally use it, so I was like, should I do a meme build with that? But then I didn't know if I'd get banned because it's like it scrolls for like 10 minutes if you just leave it. So I was like,
well, I don't know, but yeah, because like this, I mean, this just seems like a very fast click if you're just using the mouse wheel. You can replicate it entirely, but that thing, Yeah, that seems OP. But there are downsides to it though if you use a mouse wheel, because it like locks certain behaviors, so you can't just always use it. So you can't just like let it loose and then just always spin and stuff. Because I can't even remember what it was because this was a while ago. But yeah,
I'm kind of sad that Cyclone is, because I've been playing melee as well, and Cyclone is kind of taking over every aspect of everything. I feel even cast and crit. Like we don't even have there's like no skill that can do the same thing. Like a moving skill that attacks 4 times the speed of anything else except Blade Flurry, which is like what 1.6 like multiplier, and it's
bundled with stun immunity too.
yeah. It just has everything for like these like on-hit builds as well. It's kind of a. I wish I could feel that I didn't just limit myself severely if I went something like Blade Flurry for my cast and crit build. I wish a build like cast and crit or a Blade Flurry. I wish it actually had like the same amount of attack rate as a Cyclone. I think that would really fit it well because it's like a flurry of blades, right? Why shouldn't it? It like single hits anyway, so remove a lot of the clunkiness of tapping all the different monsters, just averaging that out a lot more, and you wouldn't only have Cyclone in that spot.
It'd be kind of cool if you had like Cyclone for map cast on crit, then Blade Flurry for like single target cast on crit.
Yeah. Just having more attacks that could like attack at that speed.
Is
and not just Cyclone.
Barrage cast on crit completely dead? That used to be a thing ages ago.
I've seen people do bow cast on crit with like shaper bows with the cast on crit natively supported by the weapon. It's just Quill Rain cast on crit from the Quill Rain nerfs a while ago was kind of neutered.
So the weird thing about cast and crit on barrage and skills like this is that you need to hit the correct amount of frequency of arrows in like they need to like hit in the right frequency, because with cast and crit without any cooldown reduction you can trigger a spell cast every 165 milliseconds. I know that the skills gem says 150, but with the research people have been doing in the past, they figured out that it defaults to the server tick rate. So that's 33, so it's 165 is what you get. So it's like 6.06 cast per second. So you need whatever attack you're doing to hit that number. And so barrage is kind of like weird because I'm pretty sure that's faster than that. Just by default, almost, especially on wands because they attack so fast. Maybe it'll work on something like a slow bow. That could work. Could see that.
That sounds cool.
What have you been playing, Octavian?
I've been doing I started with the lightning trap, but since then I've been min-maxing a gladiator build with Cyclone and Reckoning, using Facebreaker to scale the flat fizz off of a Reckoning from Surrender. It's really fun. Not necessarily my original concept. I just found a few path buildings, sort of smushed them together, and then min-maxed it a bunch. And I've taken that down to Delve Depth 1000. That was my league goal for softcore. So the next thing I want to do is work on getting 40-40 challenges, and then I'm probably going to start over in hardcore.
Any builds that you want to start with for hardcore?
I want to do Chieftain because Tessalio is really good.
Yes.
But I haven't made up my mind on which build. Like, I've looked at some fizz to fire conversion spells. I've looked at Armageddon Brand, which looks interesting. I've looked at like cold to fire conversion with certain setups too, but I can't settle on anything.
I really want to do Earthquake Chieftain, and apparently Cute Dog wants to play that now, so now I can't play it anymore. But that I think is a cool build.
Yeah, convert to fire.
Why? Why what?
Why is it a cool build?
Because it's like you do 100% conversion, then you can do like Val Earthquake with some like Prolift memes, and you just like speed clear really hard with it. And also, like, Impale dominates a lot of the space right now, but Impale and Earthquake doesn't have the best synergy because it's just this, like, slow-hitting ability. So you don't really want to be Fizz with it as much. Like, you could still do Impale Earthquake, but it's not as, like...
Bleed.
Yeah, you could go Bleed, maybe, but I don't know. So I feel like you either get, like, Bleed or you just, like, go Conversion base.
Yeah.
And everyone's on, like, Slayer hype train and, like, Berserk hype train. I feel like not enough people are playing Chieftain, so at some point I'm, like... the one melee ability I still really want to play is Earthquake, and I still really want to play Chieftain, so I'm probably gonna play that eventually. But
because Chieftain is like the hardcore pick, but nobody plays hardcore, so nobody plays Chieftain. I don't know.
Chieftain's cool though.
Waka
I've been
plays
thinking about it
Chieftain.
like that.
He's the Chieftain guy.
Yeah, Ancestral War Chief. I'm surprised not more people are playing that Ancestral War Chief Chieftain.
It's my fallback option
as well,
if
right?
I can't come up with something else. You know, like War Chief Chieftain is just, it's very obviously quite strong on paper.
Yeah.
So
See,
if I
my
can't think of something different, I'll go for that.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like, I really want to make a chieftain. I want to do the whole chaos thing because you just can mitigate so much damage.
The chaos thing, or the
with the timeless jewel. Yeah, it's just so powerful. You just mitigate insane amounts of damage. You can basically make yourself invulnerable. But then everything that I can think of is always like, well, why not just play with War Chief? And then I'm just like, no, I don't want.
Exactly.
Although the Tentacle MTX has definitely made it a lot more appealing for me.
That's the
And-
only
and the,
reason I want to play it. I
And
think
the,
that's
the Iron Maiden one as well? No, that's not the right
fuck
word.
that.
What is
Tentacle's way cooler.
it?
The Tentacle.
Yeah,
They're
man.
both awesome.
What is Noogie saying? What, you don't like the Tentacle?
No, I like it.
Oh, okay.
That would be
right.
that would be a reason for me to actually, because I hate War Chief.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
No, I'm with you there.
It's tricky.
I've had a very fun experience. I've played a lot of builds. We're 3 weeks into the league, and I feel like I've played more builds than I played in all of last league. So I league started on Lightning Trap. Then I made
Bleed.
Oh no, not yet. So I went into Scourge Arrow Gladiator. I went to Scourge Arrow Gladiator, and I was getting pissed off that like nothing was proccing because that was before they like changed it to work with Legion.
Yeah.
So then I was like, let's try out Noogie's bleed shit. So I respec from Scourge Arrow, which we all agree Scourge Arrow isn't that good of an ability. So going from Scourge Arrow to Puncture was a significant increase in it. Yeah, so that was fucking awful. So from that I went into Ellie hit Berserker. But that was when the accuracy bug shit was going on, and that was really pissing me off. I had to attack like 5 times.
Yeah.
And it was
Mirage Archer.
So that was the thing as well, right? So I was getting like doubly pissed off playing that character because Rage is a really cool mechanic, but Rage on bows generates a bit slowly. So then it was like, if I had Mirage Archer active, the Mirage Archer would kill mobs, so I wouldn't generate Rage.
Yes.
And then I'd be missing, not generating Rage, and I'm like, I just got to get Rage. I was getting a lot of Rage, like in IRL, but in game I wasn't getting much Rage. So then someone in my private league got a plus Impale Watcher's Eye, and I was like, ooh, let's try Rain of Arrows Impale. And that was
pretty good.
It was pretty good, but I don't know what the deal is with Rain of Arrows. It's kind of like, it seems really inconsistent with the way that it lands. So sometimes I'd like one shot like a boss, like, yeah, this build's amazing. And then other times, like, nothing would happen. And I was like,
Isn't it only like one guaranteed hit now?
Yeah, something like that. It's kind of like, it feels like a less consistent Firestorm. It's just weird. And then I ended up just going back to Lightning Trap and farming Monoliths because it was so good. Oh. And I used the Timeless Jewel, which is the double block one. And I had block cap, spell block cap, and then a shield with life gain on block. That felt pretty good. But being a Saboteur, I didn't feel too tanky, so I've remade that character now as a Scion. And now I'm feeling good. I'm only 89, I'm missing a bunch of life nodes. And I've got 6.1k life, 2.5k energy shield at the moment. And I've got really high life recovery, really high ES recovery, and I'm about to add Hail Negator into the build. And by like 95-ish with like private league gear, I should have about 7k life, about 3.5k ES.
How do you have ES recovery on that build?
A few ways. So I've got Wicked Ward, because Wicked Ward's on the tree now. I'm using a Tinker Skin, which isn't the best, but it's not the worst. So that's another source of life and ES recovery. Then I've got 20% life regen, and then Hail Negator would give me ES on like when I took a big hit. So it's like there's actually quite a lot of layers to it. So yeah.
Big fan of the Tinker Skin. That's nice. You trigger a trap. How many trap? Oh no, that's 50. No, that's really good.
Yeah.
Like that. Tinker Skin is so strong.
That's alright. It feels a bit lame because I'm doing loads of like lightning gained as chaos, and I have an Eternity Shroud, and I'm like, equip the Eternity Shroud, it's more damage. Equip the Eternity Shroud, but yeah. But,
Why don't you play Scion, Noogie, by the way?
What am I gonna? Okay, what is Scion gonna give me? That's my question.
No, I'm asking. I'm not presenting an argument.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I just don't see any. But that's the thing. I can't see anything that it should give me. So I mean, why am I not playing it? Well, I'm not playing it because I don't see an upside.
You don't like the leech, you know? Maybe you can go Slayer and Inquisitor. Inquisitor is a ton of damage on Scion. It's a lot.
It is.
I think it's like one of the
why
best
not
ones.
just go Inquisitor then?
But so you say you need a crit. What about Assassin, you know? You get power charges and stuff. Honestly, I was pissed off about that initially.
I have like double cosplays. I can just put on one of my cosplays that's more of a utility one, power charge and crit. So now I have that. It's like, why? I don't value the power charge that much. I'm crafting a chest with like the attack crit on it anyway, so I won't have problems. I will have like 95 attack crit eventually. So I'm like,
why don't more people play just straight up Slayer cosplays with the 8% base crit? Wouldn't that be pretty good?
You're in a weird spot on the tree, so you have to travel a long way. That's honestly the only problem. I think you can totally play it. So the way I would play that is I would go towards left side, and I would use the what's that jewel called? Because it's global, Transcendent Flesh. That's global crit multi. It works on spells as well. So that's really powerful.
What else are you getting out of the tree over there?
What, sorry?
Just like life clusters, basically. You mean the big strength wheel on the left side, right?
Yeah.
Converting that. Okay.
Just like just life and.
There's some like proj damage and a little bit of proj speed down there as well, like out of Jewels.
Not too much. You get stats as well, dex and big life. I mean, there's not much to get down there. I mean, that's why I don't really like the bottom side, because it's kind of weird for this build.
Well, like
especially since I'm like the hybrid version as well, and I'm even on the assassin. I was getting like 11,000 EHP with the new jewel. It's actually crazy how strong that is. So it's like I don't really need the other stuff down there.
That's the one thing which is nice about it, because I'm using the same jewel on my build. So I route down from Scion. So get the life cluster, then between Duelist and Marauder, you convert Iron Grip, and you don't lose anything in that part of the skill tree. So then you get access to a bunch of cool stuff. You then get Soul and Steel, a bunch of life nodes, you get Transcendent, and then you just shoot out the other end of Shadow. So that way, like, coming down to that bit of the tree is actually really nice. That's the one thing I like about the Timeless Jewels. Raiz looks like he's questioning this bullshit.
It's just because, like, Iron Grip seems weird right now. I don't know.
I feel like you didn't listen to what I said, did you? Why am I taking Iron Grip, Raiz?
No, I totally wasn't listening to what you said.
Yeah,
I just heard Iron Grip. And then,
I put the Timeless Jewel there to convert Iron Grip.
Okay.
So I don't lose anything.
I totally missed that
part. The kind of important bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do really like.
I'm still looking for ways to convince Noogie about Scion, you know, because I like how in the past you could play it without like a life potion, but I don't think that's sufficient anymore.
I think you can on Inquisitor, like with the because now we get like Inquisitor gives me all the regen as well, right?
Yeah, it's a ton of regen. That's the thing. I really like it because you get ES regen, life regen, and then you can go MOM and have mana regen. It's like so sick in that way.
MOM. I mean, it's nice. I get what you're saying. I think MOM is a trap this league.
Whoa.
No, I think so. I think MOM is actually a trap this league. It's this is not the glory days of MOM right now. So I would stay away from that. There's just too much good stuff to put in your mana.
Just
not even talking about like
existing is enough to fuck
yeah,
up.
We saw a lot of people move off MOM as a game plan, even in the context of the Kammel Race, the level.
Yeah.
You know, like who is it? Leaf was doing Inquisitor and went to like a sort of light hybrid setup, if you want to look at it that way. He had like 800-900 energy shield in the recovery from Inquisitor, and just said screw it to mind over matter.
Yeah, but then like the stronger your character is, the less efficient something like that it's going to be. Like the 200 flat energy shield regeneration is nice initially, but once you're in like red maps,
Yeah, but then
Liquid
that's when you
regen
then go
isn't
like
that much.
EB mom though.
I mean, the 200, you don't take that node just for the 200 regen. It's also 20 attack and cast speed and element immunity.
Yeah. No, absolutely, for sure. It has a lot more to offer. I'm just saying that like from that perspective, it's not a whole lot. It just grows weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
But initially, yeah, it was a great idea. It was really refreshing to watch Inquisitor in some racing scenario, especially since it was Pious Path and not something like Inevitable Judgment of, or actually I was surprised it wasn't even Instruments of Virtue, which shield charge is so nice now. Lego was one of the people suggesting maybe doing some sort of shield charging something.
With the new flame dash and cooldown recovery, I mean, how can you say no?
Fortify is still useful. Not dying's pretty cool, you know. I think
there were a few people using shield charge, but not up at the top.
Garatha was, I know that. Yeah, but that was with a dead eye. He had like 1.6k life.
Had a few close calls there.
Yeah.
Since we've segued into it a little bit, so Niggy, you participated in the race, and Octavian and Raiz, you both casted it. What were like the highlights for you guys of the whole event?
Shock Nova. Shock Nova was the highlight. Seriously, Kammel, like, he did a little interview with us after he ripped, which he got up to a rip at rank 3 and level 79. So he did pretty damn well with Shock Nova, and he had a little interview with us after, and he was like, yeah, I didn't plan anything. I just saw there's that clip of Mathel using Shock Nova. I'm like, that's a cool skill. Let's race with that.
Huh.
It goes to show how, like, generically well practiced he is at the leveling process, that he can just take a skill like that and throw it in and say, I'm just going to run with this.
There's even more to it. He didn't get an adrenaline flask ever. So this whole time he was without adrenaline. And one of the cool aspects of this was that the other players were playing Armageddon brand. We don't know what Ty was playing, but they were playing Armageddon brand. And to me, at least, very clearly, they were leaving a lot of rare mobs behind, while Kammel would just one-shot them. So even though he didn't really have any of the mobility, the fact that he would deal with rare mobs that give so much XP now, it really, flipped the race, really flipped my perspective on how these things need to be managed in the future. But Ty did admit that he didn't play Shock Nova, so there's another setup that potentially is better.
That's one skill down. We'll narrow it down and get it eventually.
I'm just curious what you guys think about that, just from like a purely fairness point of view. How do you feel about events like this where someone's participating but you have no idea what the hell they're doing? That just seems kind of weird to me from a spectator point of view.
If it's going to be open sign up, which was part of the point of this race, obviously the practiced racers are still the people most likely to end up winning and winning the ticket, but it was meant to be open sign up so that anyone could participate, and if anyone happened to be good enough, they could win and take home the ticket to New Zealand. And if you're going to have that, you can't then also have a prerequisite of being able to stream it, because not everyone has access to that kind of hardware.
Shouldn't you have a prerequisite of your profile should be public so people can like look at it at least?
So it's more that than
it just seems a bit weird to me, since obviously a big part of this event is it's meant to be watched. Yes. To then have someone who's such a good, like, we all know he's an amazing racer, but like whenever he's in it, it's like, we don't know what he's doing. It's just a bit kind of anticlimactic from a viewer point of view. Like, I was watching a lot of Raiz's commentary for the last few hours, and it's like, he's crushing, don't know how, tune in next time. And it's like,
I don't think it was like that at all, honestly. Well, okay, so for me, it's very different, right? So one of the players was Havoc, and he wasn't streaming, and he was on a separate account, and just from his choices, you could tell that it was Havoc. Like, it was pretty immediate, and the way he played also, it was pretty clear that it was also Essence Drain, just with the way the character scaled. So you could figure out like certain things and certain choices that he made, but then at some point, a lot of it stopped making sense. And I was trying to make sense of it. I'm like, okay, it's not Havoc, because this guy doesn't play like Havoc anymore. Suddenly something flipped. Maybe this is somebody else who hasn't practiced that much. I kind of recognize his name, but a lot of people have a name similar to that. And it turns out that he was lacking. So that's why he couldn't like play at the level that he normally would. And I think stuff like that is cool, man. I think this whole you have to watch for it to really be entertaining thing is pretty new. If you've participated in the races a long time ago when the seasons were existing and all this stuff, and you can make an argument that it didn't work and that's why it doesn't exist anymore. But everybody pretty much did that, you know? Everybody was hiding their builds, everybody was doing something secretive, and they were always trying to get the upper hand. And it's cool that it's not cool in the way that unfortunately it's bad for promoting racing and all this sort of stuff. Obviously, you know, we're trying to blow it up as a thing, and if people just can't watch, that's pretty lame. So I can see from an observer point of view how that's lame. But I think if anything, it makes for an even better final, which, you know, events like these will lead up to. And then once they're live on the stage, there's no hiding them, right? We're broadcasting all of it, and the mystery will be unveiled, and we get a little bit of a, you know, tidbits here and there, and the build-up's going to be worth it in the long run, I think.
Since both of you guys are, you know, much more practiced racers, how far do you think the meta can progress from this point? Like, how rough do you think it is right now? Because pretty much every other racer that I talked to after the event said, like, you know, that time was a little slow. It can definitely be improved. Arma brand may not be the future.
Super slow.
Super slow? Okay.
Yeah, things like these really take a lot of time to evolve. Even when like Melee and Sunder was like a thing. I remember when, I can't remember the exact time, but it was something like Alkaiser did a 1 hour and 50 minutes something, and everybody was like, wow, he's the greatest player ever. And then 3 weeks down the line, people were doing like 1 hour and 10 minutes, you know, like 1 hour 20. Like, and then half a year later, it was even less and less. Like, obviously, at that point, things change, right? But
Meta and everything.
it keeps going down. Here, definitely players felt that, you know, Stormbrand is kind of like the
baseline.
Yeah, it's kind of like the baseline, and where you can move that goalpost, and yeah, it'll all change. But I mean, Shock Nova, you know,
it looks pretty good unless you came across a pack of porcupines.
He competed with Shock Nova with no adrenaline, seemingly barely giving a shit. Honestly, he was playing around with Chad the whole time. I was watching Kammel. There's just so much more you can do. Obviously, we don't know how much more Ty and Leaf could have done. It doesn't feel to me like Leaf could have done that much more, but he was definitely playing on the safe side towards the end. So I think he could have saved like 10 more minutes with just like the final moments. And that's something that he definitely mentioned, that this was worse than his average practice times, but you know, he just wanted to make sure that he's going to be able to qualify. But like, how much more Ty's got in him? As far as I know, he wasn't willing to share, you know? So he could just make a run that's 40 minutes faster. Maybe this was just him being absolutely casual.
I mean, I have I don't know if I think this is like that they're playing absolutely casual. They want to win. They're competitive people. Can they do it faster? 100%. Even with Kammel, right? Like sometimes you play whenever you're having fun, right? You take risks. You go faster because you don't give a shit. That can actually be an edge, not giving a shit, right? Whenever you can get that comfortable with anything is when you can really go fast. So I think that's like one of his strengths, and why he goes fast, why he's a good player.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Well, it also helped that he didn't have anything on the line either, because he wasn't able to win because of like how it was set up. So he was able to just be like, who gives a shit, you know?
I saw him log like God knows how many times. Like he was dead and then he logged. He was dead and he logged. And he's dead and he logged, and then he was actually dead. So
these aren't the sort of services that you would make normally in a race.
No,
and they're conscious. You're trying to cut as many corners as possible. Yeah, not giving a shit absolutely helps for sure. Yeah.
I think there's a lot to explore though. I'm even on the melee is kind of weird. Like I went for the melee because I love playing melee in this league. So I was like, we can make it work. It didn't really work in the end. I was on a 2-link to like, what was it, like mid-act 2? I was in a 3-link when I was fighting Malachi. I didn't have weapons. So it's kind of like, That was unfortunate. I really wanted to like just get a good time. I was like hoping for like maybe like a 5-hour 30 on melee, like a respectable time. I think melee can go below 5 hours as well. Yeah,
5:30 is respectable. What? No way, Noogie. You can do less than 5, right?
on melee.
Yeah.
I think you can get there.
I mean, I'm saying I wanted to do that this run because
okay.
this was the first melee run I've had in like a year. Like the true, I did like 2-3 runs earlier, like since Friday. So I mean, there was only like,
That's not a lot of practice.
I'm not as practiced as these other guys, so no, I can't get the same time yet. But I am really excited to practice more. After the race yesterday, I set up a new account, or not a new account. I just started like just practicing some new ideas, and I haven't done that in a long time. So I'm like, I'm feeling good about racing again. I've never really been a big fan of like the 80-85 races, but this whole meta shift kind of like it got me interested again.
Out of curiosity, what's been the difficulty for you with the 80-85? Like, what is it that is
Setting
the
6
sticking
hours
point?
aside to practice.
I can
Like
see that.
I get bored half the way through. Just it's as simple as that. I just get bored half the way through. It's like I just get to like I want to test that thing at like level 60. I'm like, just get there. So yeah, that's kind of. I'm like I spend way too much time on like every little bit, along the way. So if I don't perfect like the first 3 acts, I just end up with having to do like 50 hours of practicing to just get the first 3 ready. Then another for the 4th and the 5th and the 6th act. It just takes so long. So that's been really difficult for me to overcome.
One thing I'm curious by, because we're going to see another meta shift, because there's going to be another league before the ExileCon race.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think the practice is now, considering...
Very important.
Okay.
Very important. The reason why Kammel does so well is because he's been practicing for the last year. The reason why Ty does so well is because he's been practicing for the last... I mean, I don't know how long they've been like hardcore racing. Like I know like for the last year at least, there's been this like circuit going of races and everything, and they've been practicing for every one of them, and it makes a big difference.
It sticks too for a long time.
Yes.
Like even people like Hellman, he really just doesn't play the game, but like 3 years later, he can jump into a race with minimal amounts of practice and do extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Shock Nova run from Kammel really speaks to that. Like he didn't practice that specifically. Like if the meta were to shift in the next patch and Shock Nova somehow becomes the top tier skill, he would be the first one to be able to jump on that and be able to just run it. It seems, like whatever the skill is, he just has he's so practiced at the ins and outs of the generic racing process that he can pretty much take any skill and apply it to that, as long as it's a competent enough skill.
I would say like all the people in the top can do that. It's not just, I mean, you could probably throw the same thing in like Leaf and Tide. They have like their own ways of playing. They're not as, they don't play as creatively as Kammel might do. They have like a set of like that just works, but you could throw them on a different thing and I'm sure they would.
Yeah, and
they will blow it out of the water.
There was a bunch of other like really interesting stuff that people unfortunately ripped early and we weren't able to see it. Like I would have loved to see your melee setup get taken to the end game. Uber was going to do Assassin with I think it was Blade Vortex, but he had an unfortunate rip in Lunaris. So I'm really looking forward to the next race when we might see some of that stuff shake out a little bit further.
We have 2 more qualifiers, right?
Yes.
Are they both going to be this league, or will there be one next league?
Don't know.
I think it would be cool to have one next league, because then it would be one in the same meta we'll see at ExileCon.
Yes, that'd actually be pretty cool.
Because it reminds me, because I used to follow a lot of like card games a lot, and that was always one of the really cool things, is when like a new expansion would drop, and then you'd have a tournament like the week later, because it's all so fresh. You felt kind of unfair because people would qualify on different decks, and now their decks like are irrelevant. But that's one of the things which is, I think, very interesting. They could take advantage of. Whether they do take advantage of that, it might be a missed opportunity. But I think that would be a cool thing if they could get the timings right. That we have this like oh shit, this ExileCon is big because it's the first ExileCon, but it's a meta we've never seen before, and that would be really exciting.
It's not exciting from my perspective.
Why not? I'm
Because it's
curious.
like, it's because it's a speed run, you know? It's not like who can come up with the best thing. It's who can run the fastest, right? And if there's like a very clear distinction, yeah, that's not cool to
But
me.
can
Like
you imagine?
Killer was definitely playing an inferior skill compared to the other players, and that's why he fell behind. He played great. You could see that he had the skill to pull it off. Just chose the wrong thing. So,
But
yeah.
saying that though, we've just spent the last like 20 minutes gassing up Shock Nova. Can you imagine if someone like if this had been ExileCon and they'd won it with Shock Nova and everyone else was playing Brand, you'd be like, oh my god, he's so amazing, you know. So
Yeah, I mean that's true for sure.
or like if someone
it's
brought back
tricky.
like Caustic Arrow or something.
Well,
you'd
the
be
thing
like,
is, the thing that I worry about, it's like in the last meta, things were very obvious. In the previous meta, things were very obvious too. It was like Sunder, now it was like Stormbrand. You know, depending on the length of the race, there's Winter Orb. There wasn't really much room for innovation. This one, I don't feel like that at all. I don't feel, at least right now, and obviously I might be missing vital information here, but I don't feel like there's anything that just very obviously stands out.
No.
So it's going to be a lot of experimenting, and I don't even know if this amount of time will be enough to figure out the actual meta. So every single one of these races should be fairly exciting because we're definitely not going to be seeing the same abilities, you know, next time around. I don't think Armageddon Brand is going to be like the thing to do.
do we know how many people are actually roughly partaking in the ExileCon race? Like how many people that is?
This one or
No, the actual like tournament race.
4.
4. And then how many people are decided currently? 2, right?
2.
Who are they again? I've been paying attention.
Ty and
Ty 23 and Lee.
So who would you think would be the next 2?
Ooh.
Like if you had to put money on it. See, there was a reason for me to play that little game. It makes sense.
I'm trying to remember the short list that Tai gave me before this race started of people he thought were going to win. I think Havoc was on it.
I would say Havoc.
Ty 23, but he's already going. Leaf, but he's already going. And I can't remember the 4th person he had on his list. But yeah, I think Havoc is a pretty
Waggle
good
can
guess.
always do well. Sis can always do well. I hope I can do well with practice.
Karatha had a pretty good showing. The
Yeah.
Deadeye was squishy, but he was going fast.
No money on Heschler or anything?
Actually, it's a dark horse. I think he can for sure.
Well, I'd like to see Heschler in there.
Yeah.
It's tough. I'd say
he was flying in the end, right?
Yeah, he was doing really well.
Time, yeah.
I think at points he was definitely outplaying Leaf, but he had to worry about like maps. So yeah, that's where he kind of ran into a problem. He just, you know, the more you have to think about like what your next step is, the worse you're playing in the map, and it really shows. And when he wasn't concerned with that, he was really flying for sure. And I mean, his early game's really strong. I think Havoc is definitely the pick, unless some freak accident happens.
So I feel like this right now something always happens to Havoc.
Yeah,
right?
There's some weird shit going on.
I don't know. So if he can get past that somehow, then yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say Havoc and Tai Killer. I think Tai has it in him. I think he's the type of player.
It depends on the race. If it's a shorter race, I think so. I wasn't impressed with his mapping abilities. I think he needs to.
I think his strategy just wasn't the correct one. Like it's a fresh meta, and I guess, yeah, no. So not like the actual like speed and the technical ability, the mechanical ability, but more the strategy is what you had an issue with. Because that was, I think, what was undoing him. Like going for the Legion events and, you know, staying in lower tier maps that are open a little longer to try and take advantage of that. Like he just made a bad read on what the meta would be.
Yeah, I think Tai is pretty much like the opposite of Kammel. He's not like very creative, but he has the capability of like grinding out a certain scenario long enough to become by far the best player, like noticeably just so strong. So I don't think the fact that he did as well as he did in this like scenario where there's just so many unknowns really goes to
Yeah.
show that he's got a lot in store for the upcoming events. I really wish Waggle qualified in the first one. Honestly, he was so close to qualifying in the
What
first
happened
one.
in the first one?
He was like super close. I can't. Maybe Octavian remembers. It was like super close between Waggle and Ty in the end. Like they were like seconds apart.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
remember the specific
right.
time.
Right.
Yeah. So because that's kind of the thing with Waggle. He either dies to a bunch of traps or just like shows everybody he's like the best. And in that one, he almost showed everybody he was the best. And I fear that now he's just gonna keep dying to a bunch of traps. I hope not, but yeah, that's why I can't really vote for him. But he would be my second pick.
See, I'm mostly interested in the like organizational side of this racing thing. So another question, and again, this is from a spectator point of view. Do you think they should keep letting people who've already qualified race? Because again, that's a bit weird when it's kind of like, and the person coming in third wins the ticket to ExileCon.
I think it's still like important to have those big competitors in the race. Like we don't have a absolutely massive racing scene as compared to the esports scene in a lot of other games and stuff. And if we start calling some of our top competition just because they've already qualified, we're gonna have some races that are maybe a little bit barren, a little bit sparse. So I don't know. I think it's fine. So long as we just pass down that golden ticket to whoever's next in line that doesn't have one yet.
I mean, even in larger esports, don't they also allow teams who've already qualified, even if they're not eligible, to partake? I mean, you have like the big events, right? Which there's a qualifier spot.
You mean like in the course of a regular season or something? If there's
Yeah,
a team
I don't know how that works.
Finished for as well. It's going to be differ based on like game by game because not everything's going to have the same sort of tournament racing structure.
Okay.
Well, the thing is too that
I mean, you want to race against the best people as well.
Yeah, you want to race against the best people. You really don't know how much like more they can do in that way. And I think it's cool too that if Ty wins all 4 qualifiers,
just as
right?
bragging rights kind of thing.
Like if then everybody else is demoralized and somebody else wins the final. That's a story. I don't know. I really like that idea. So I think I'm okay with it.
It'd be weird to say you can't.
Would it be would you feel a way about it? Like, let's say that Noogie, like, you destroyed everyone in the first race, you had a guaranteed spot, and they said, "Oh, since you've already got a spot, you can't do the next 3." Would you feel a way about that?
No, you can't win the prize money because there's also prize money for the top 5. So even though Ty was already qualified and he was already going to ExileCon, he still won 40% of the prize pool of like 400. I think it was like $400.
It leads people, if they're really good, to like make weird decisions where they will intentionally get second. He might intentionally get second in like the first 2 and be like that confident. I know what you're saying. It's like, oh, but like let's just say you're Ty.
Right, okay.
And you're that
try
confident,
and get the most money out of it.
Okay. Okay. Just game the system.
Get second in the first 3 so you can get a portion of the prize pool, and then first in the last one.
Like just the first one to see like, I'll take 2.
So
I don't know.
I mean, in a way, that kind of happened with Leaf, honestly, where he was playing very confidently and everything. And then once Heshla started gaining up on him, suddenly he was like a quarter of a level behind, and Leaf just sped up. Like, very clearly, he changed up his gameplay. And
I mean, this would have been the case whether or not Ty had been there.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
I mean, he was going for the safe. Because people have been, what I've been noticing, people have been saying a lot that Leaf always dies, right? It's like, oh, when he's going to die? 77, 78, 79? So like, Leaf knew, right? I'm not going to die this time. He came out with a really good strategy for surviving. And it paid off.
Yeah, I mean, he did miss out on like $200 though. So there's that.
I mean, he got... The thing he wanted though was the
yeah, probably.
Tickets to New Zealand's a bit more money than 200.
Yeah, it's like you know. Because it's what they always get the hotel for like the event as well. Is it flights and hotel or just flights?
I don't know. I would imagine so. I
I'm
mean,
100% sure that it's the flight and it's the ticket to the event, but the hotel I'm not certain.
But I mean, that's still like $2,000 or something. It's, you know, it's
and
kind
then
of
a few
big deal.
hundred for the
Yeah.
event.
Yeah. But just so we don't spend 20 hours on racing, since obviously GGG probably has. All right, fine.
Whoa.
So we spend to stay on the topic of racing even longer. Since GG obviously does have some input, if you from the events we've already seen, if there's one thing you'd want to say to GGG about how they could like change how they do the next few qualifiers, is there anything you'd like to see more or less of?
Not really. I mean, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room here, honestly, in how these things are run.
I just want to see more support for racing in PoE.
But
Just
like
generally.
what though?
If anything, it would be
infrastructure,
something.
spectator mode, or like being able to set up a race, stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's what I really just want. I want them to push that out now rather than after the event. I mean, maybe the correct move is to just let the event play itself out. If it's a big success, then they push it more. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, to just see if it's something that takes.
A proper spectator mode would make a world of difference on the commentary end, because it's frustratingly difficult to have some like actual impactful commentary sometimes, because you don't know what someone's itemization might look like unless you're taking the time to go and dig up their profile and look through it. And during that time, you might miss a rip, or you might miss somebody else finding something cool. You know, you already have like half a dozen important people to pay attention to, so it gets very tough to notice whether or not someone's chroming is going well, or whether or not someone has managed to craft their +1 wand when they needed to, or if they're getting unlucky with links or something like that. So if you just, at the click of a button in a spectator mode, had the ability to look over anybody's gear, that would be that would help so much on the commentator side.
Something like that actually I think could be really nice from more of a spectator point of view is if we had better ways of monitoring people's XP. Because you can't, the side by side like real live view is not really there. It's always like a 5 minutes later. Oh, what's the next update gonna look like? And you never really know.
It can be really deceptive sometimes too.
Yeah.
Like there was a point during the race where it looked like Kammel was 100 million an hour behind the rank just below him, and then it updated again, and actually no, Kammel's like 50 million ahead.
Yeah.
He was just like in his hideout for a few seconds when it updated or something. I don't even know what would cause that sort of discrepancy.
Oh, every second's so important. Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of utility stuff that we've talked about, I think, over and over. I think something that GGG could immediately do is just set up a couple of races, run like 2 events every weekend and get people hyped up, get people excited to race, get people to actually play. I think many people wanted to try out this event, and then they were like, oh yeah, let's see how this is going to work. I've never seen a race or played in a race before, but I want to sign up because I'm a good player. And then they die at level 7, 37 minutes in, and they're like, well, I guess I suck, so I'm done now. Time for the next one that I'm probably not going to participate in 3 months down the line. Not a whole lot going on there, so yeah, it would be cool to just give people an opportunity to warm up.
One thing I would like to see for the next 2 qualifiers, and a lot of games do this, is have a thing where you log in on the website. It's a bit difficult this is better for invite only rather than open seed, but you like pick who you want to win, and if they win, you want a fucking loot box. So many games do that, where it's kind of
dude, battle passes and all this, dude, and like
so many games do that. You're just like, I think Waggle might win. Waggle wins. Here's a free card. They used to do that shit in Hearthstone all the time.
I think that's 100% gonna happen if it just continues on the right track, because I don't know, it's the way of the future. For building up prize pools and just rewarding people and all this stuff, I think it's pretty important.
I mean, you don't even have to go on like the full like battle pass prize pool bullshit, but just the simple fact that since this is a GG sanctioned event, if I think, oh, Havoc wins and Havoc wins, them just giving away a loot box, it doesn't cost them anything. It puts more attention onto the race. And also, you're more likely to buy a loot box if you go, oh, I now have the helmet of the set. I now want the chest. I guess I'll buy some more boxes. Like, there's a reason why these games do this. So
I mean, they could give you like a goddamn Weta pet, and people would be all over that.
Yeah.
You know, the little 5 credit bug thing. Like, you offer a free item, and people will go crazy for that, regardless of what it is, basically.
They should make it. They should make it unique, and then you can tally up how many you've gotten. That would be cool, because then you can see, I have 5 of these. Oh, you only have 3. I got more right than you. And it could be a little game you have with your friends.
It's like
Why
the
not?
Roa dinners.
Yeah, that's great.
26. Yeah.
You have 26 Roa dinners?
Yeah, man. It's popping off. I
Yeah,
think
that's more
Niggy's
than
got
me.
more, but yeah, I love
I
that
don't
shit.
remember how many. I had like
You guys
30.
got me beat.
I only played freeze balls because I refused to do all the other stuff.
Dude,
It wasn't effective enough.
I
I tried
had
super
Frost
hard.
Blades, Weapon Swap, Ice Shot. I was like fucking popping off, like weapon swapping and shit. Oh, I loved it.
I won one with Ground Slam. That made me happy.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That was tough. Took me many games.
I think my hardest win was with like SRS or some shit.
Oh shit.
That was cool. That was fun. Just hiding behind a pillar, just like spam casting. Like, yeah.
No, I think like infrastructure, because this goes in so many games, right? Where they neglect the infrastructure of the thing, like giving people ways of competing and giving organizers the right tools that they need to set up a good event. I mean, you just look at Hearthstone, right? So much opportunity, and they just don't give a fuck about it. I'm like, what are you doing? You're like alienating like this very, very passionate part of your community for no reason.
So, since we've spoken about racing for 20 hours, now to go back a bit to Timeless Jewels, because we all got pretty hype on Timeless Jewels.
Yes.
Ooh.
So, I'm doing the Life to ES one, Niggy's doing Life to ES. Raiz, you've done the Chaos Damage one. Remind me which one you've used again, Octavian?
I've used a few. I used the Supreme Ego one on the build that was running Mortal Conviction. That gives you 50% more effect of an aura, but it costs more. But Mortal Conviction makes it free, so you just get a big buff aura. I really want to make a build around Agnostic, the Templar one.
The mana one, right?
Yeah, so when you're missing life,
yeah.
you drain 20% of your mana and recover that much life. So I want to make a Soul Thirst build with that. And
Wait, say that
then
again? Which one was that?
when you're missing life, you drain 20% of your mana per second and recover that much life.
Oh.
So I have a couple ideas, either just like Trickster with like the recover mana on cast Watcher's Eyes, so you get a ton of recovery out of Trickster and the recovery Watcher's Eye and that, and just like stack a bunch of mana, maybe go Indigon, you know, just sort of generic mana stacking route.
Yeah.
Or something real spicy, which I don't think will work, but you go Soul Thirst and you like do RF to sort of burn away your own hit points, but you balance the RF out with recovery from your mana, and then you pop a mana flask that lasts for like 20 seconds. And if you balance the recovery and the degen correctly, you can have Soul Thirst, or you can have Soul Eater for the whole map, and you just make the map last only 20 seconds. The problem with that is that Legion takes a little while.
Yeah, just
like
a
at
little
that point, Legion becomes the gate to your clear speed.
Nice.
Nice.
Anyways, in general, it looks really cool, and I absolutely love Timeless Jewels. In my current build, the Gladiator, I'm not using any of the keystones, but I'm just using a Karui jewel down in the duelist area. Because if you get a good one, you can get, like the one I currently have gives 20% effective fortify, like 200 life, and 40% increased damage. Like that's just a really good jewel if you compare it to a generic rare jewel.
Marikath ones are really strong as well.
Flask effects, yeah.
In the shadow area.
Yeah.
I mean, the Vol ones can be very powerful, but on specific things. For instance,
Yeah, it's
for
pretty
the
RNG.
yeah, you can get Curse Effect, or well, Curse Effect also, but Aura Effect, which is
Yeah.
a multiplier. You get like 12, 16% aura effect. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I had one timeless jewel, because I've been spam corrupting Doriani's just trying to find the best one for my bit of the tree. And there was one which gave like 5 max cold res within about 8 points or something. And it's like, it's pretty good if you want max cold res. But
Hope Shredder with that or something.
my
Yeah.
current one is pretty good. It gives, I've got Withered on hit, which is really nice. I'm doing Ellie gained as chaos, and then a bunch of like projectile speed, life, and then obviously the big jewel. But one thing which I'm sure you all really enjoy about it, Tarke, why do you take melee crit nodes on your lightning trapper? I was like, I'm using a timeless jewel. What's a timeless jewel? Was that?
Yeah, I mean, I converted the Mind Over Matter keystone on my blood magic build. I've gotten a lot of questions as to why I'm using Mind Over Matter on blood magic. It's one of the more annoying things.
Yeah.
As a streamer, which obviously is a very niche population of the game, but it is one of the more annoying things in that position, in regards to them not being like public, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because GGG didn't want that information out there as to what number does what on your tree, and I guess a side effect of that is that they just can't let something like Path of Building know what your jewel is doing.
Yeah.
Because if you open that floodgate, then suddenly Path of Building has access to the knowledge of what all the jewels would do in that spot, and that's a problem.
I mean, the perfect example of that is Raiz on this podcast already asked you why I took Iron Grip on my lightning trapper because he didn't listen to you say I was using the fucking timeless jewel.
I wasn't listening to that. Come on. You guys were talking about skill trees. Well, the thing is, like, people are already upset about it, which I'm pretty surprised with.
Oh, are you surprised?
Like,
I love it. I want to see more items like this, but it didn't surprise me that people are upset about it.
I'm trepidatious about it. Like, it's cool that I have this divine sync, and when I'm using the Karui ones on the duelist area of the tree, that's pretty fun because I don't care about the keystone. But when I care about the keystone and I also care about the number, it makes it really hard to even just like search for these things, because just coming up with a search term that, like, I'm not trying to guarantee myself to get a good one, but trying to find the exact right name each time and like find someone who's actually responding. It's similar to the synthesis problem, but less extreme, where it's this new cool mechanic that has a lot of potential, and it's just butting heads with the trade system being as clunky as it has always been.
I kind of disagree a bit with this.
Okay.
I'll let you know why. Because if you allow that, because one of the reasons we have because we have a lot of jewels, right? Like, what do you do now? Because you can't really find them. So you're divining them, and what else are you doing? You're probably farming them, right?
Not personally, no.
Okay.
I've been focusing on Delve, but yeah, no.
But a lot of people are farming them.
Yeah,
there's such an abundance of them. It's easy to get a lot of them. And so one of the reasons why it's so easy, I have this I would guess that the reason why it's so easy and why they drop so abundantly is because that we can't search for them on trade. So the trade-off is that they force you to do the content more rather than just search for them.
It is the issue. Like, it's kind of all or nothing. You can't give partial information here. If you allow Path of Building and other programs like that to know what a number is going to do, suddenly everyone knows, or everyone who takes the time to look it up and is invested in this kind of thing, exactly which jewels are best in which spots. And the market just crystallizes. Like 95, 94, however much % of jewels become trash, and the other ones become incredibly expensive.
I mean, just compare it to a watches item.
I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's exactly the same as Niggu. It's like, I think I've got something like 10 jewels. Every single build I've played this league has used a jewel. And it's the case of, you don't even need the best one. Like, even if you just do like one 3-way encounter and you get one Kurui jewel, if you just throw 5 divines into it, somewhere on your skill tree for any build, you'll hit like 10% double damage or 20% reduced damage from crits. That is better than a rare jewel. It's always worth using a timeless jewel in every build. Guaranteed. Hands down.
Yeah. It is.
And it doesn't have to be the perfect jewel. Like, you don't need to be Octavian going for 1k delve and like looking for exactly the right one. Just having a decent timeless jewel is better than any rare jewel someone's gonna have. and that's amazing. I get excited when a divine drops. I'm like, yeah, divine, not
same.
like, oh no, I got scammed, it wasn't an exalt. Like, I get hype, it is really cool, and I love it. I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to use this now. And it makes me excited about loot that I'm not normally excited about, and that's a good thing.
If you do happen to, like, by watching a stream, or you have a friend who finds a jewel with like the perfect number, and so you find a number that you know is really good in a particular spot, PoE app does have the functionality to search within a range for a specific number. So I did have a live search up for a couple specific numbers for a little, just FYI for anyone who.
I mean, over time, people will figure out the good numbers and they will share them, right? And it just
I mean,
creates
even that, I had those live searches up for days and nothing popped up. Like, the
okay,
ranges are
you
massive.
have them, but okay, then it didn't pop up. Then you just need to find. You'll find a
Yes.
way to like work your way around it, right? It's not like so the synthesis problem, which is what I disagreed with what you said, is that in synthesis you were locked out of the content. You're locked out of the whole, right? You kind of like getting to just going through the pages and pages of like figuring out what I need to put together and then buying them and all this. There were so many like steps to take. This is just like you find a jewel and it's always going to work, right? The keystone will always work, and then the bonuses of whatever. It's not game breaking. It's not like excluding you from doing the content in the same way that synthesis was for the majority of players.
A lot of players feel like that, though. I think that's the problem, because it's so different to what the core game is, right? That a lot of people
not even that
feel
different,
locked
though.
out.
No,
I'm not trying to
say that you're
justify it. I'm
watching
telling
like
you the
Nugi's
reason
build.
why it's different.
I know, I understand it, but let's say you watch him, you're like, okay, so Nugi uses a Doriani jewel. So if someone's copy his build, they just need to find a Doriani jewel. That's it. They don't need to find the perfect jewel.
It's honest. That's it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not how people consider this. Like, first of all, it can be very like different on the notables depending on the jewel, right?
Sure.
Depending on what you've got. And that can already be enough of a difference for people to get upset. And that's why people are upset. Because it's like, oh, I'm missing out on 2 passive points. This is completely different from anything else in Path of Exile. That's an issue. And the second thing is that they feel like potentially they're missing out. Maybe they just found the best jewel ever and they don't have a way to figure out whether or not it's actually worthwhile. So if they're looking to sell it, then they could potentially be missing out on something that, somebody's going to buy for 20 chaos and be able to resell it for 20 exalts. And people just freak out about that. I think it's justifiable too.
It's a difficult market to be a seller in because of how difficult it is to find your purchasers. You've got to put in that effort.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be a buyer as well.
True. It's just not an easy market all around.
It's
but
very
a lot of the
different, but
complaints I've been getting
works.
are from people who've they found a really nice jewel, but they just can't come up with any way that they can get the information out there to get it sold.
So there is a default price. Either you have, so there's like 2 ways. Either you have to know someone who you trust, which will, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing that we're actually trading with each other and talking about, oh, this thing does that, and check this out. Like, that's really nice to have that conversation with someone. And secondly, it puts a base price. So whenever you find something on, if it just says Doriani right now, it's like 50C. And it doesn't matter how crap it is. It's just like, because it's of this type, then regardless of so you can find trash and you can find gems in there, and that's just kind of the like what it is. Like, to the point you were saying earlier, like, if we have all the information, 95 of them becomes trash. So this idea that you're missing out, no, you're getting an opportunity because people don't know, so they will buy at a higher rate because they have to take the gamble. And I thought we love gambling. I don't know. It's like, what? This is a perfect. Like, you can make. You can.
I don't think it's wrong. It's just so different for people that it just turns them away.
Partially, it's
a reasonable reaction to have.
Yeah.
It could partially be like some of the obscurity of the system as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people just have trouble understanding what is even like the variability here. There's the flavor text in each of the different jewels. For instance, I've had a few people, and I actually made this assumption at the start too, and this is a misconception I had for a little while, where I thought that the number range is what was controlling the name range as well. So if you rolled on the low end, you'd get the low end of the name. If you rolled in the middle end, you get the middle end of the name. But no, they're 2 separate rolls. So that certainly isn't helping that there's these, like, I don't know. It's Path of Exile. There's always these layers of obscurity, but it takes
like,
it to another level.
One
but that's
thing,
like
though,
it's so obscure. It's almost
it's
like
not
a
that
sarcastic
obscure though.
thing.
Like
It is.
No,
What are you
compared
talking about?
to
How is it not
synthesis,
obscure?
it's not. But let me just explain one thing
What?
about it.
How
This
can you
is
say
way
that?
easier than synthesis.
This is almost like a sarcastic joke. There's like 10 billion different combinations of things that you can have that it's
okay. Let me
clearly
explain why.
not intended
The
to
reason
work
why
like
this is
that.
much easier than synthesis is all you need to do is this, right? So okay, how many different jewels are there? There are 5 jewels for each legion. Okay, boom. Now I need to know what the names do. That's the most important thing, really, is knowing what the keynodes do. So then you're like, okay, so I want to try and plan a build around one of these keynodes. So then you know I want to target Maraketh, or I want to target this. Then you're like, oh, I'm playing a Raiz build. I want Curse Effect. Who gives me Curse Effect? Val. So you can target. Having to memorize which of 5 jewels it is, and then try and work out what gives you what, isn't that big of a deal. Like, it honestly isn't that big of a deal.
What? How
But-
can you say that this is easier for the average player than something like synthesis, which was literally just going to a website and clicking Control F? There's a reason why you could do that there.
Scrolling through thousands of modifiers. This is way more approachable than Bestiary for the same reason. Because
I think you need to understand with synthesis, you need to understand like the weightings of different modifiers and like stacking them up against each other, and then clicking the outcome and then getting something completely different. Right? Oh shit! I have like 3 items all have life on them. Oh, that has to give me life, right? And then you get 3 fires. And you're like, what?
If someone knows nothing, if someone's like, Tarke, I've never played with a timeless jewel before, what do I do? Okay, if you're playing a melee build, if you go with Kurui, you'll be okay. Kurui is safe, it will never brick anything. Maraketh is safe, it will never brick anything. If you want Flastoff, go for Maraketh. If you want to be more spicy with your builds, go with Val, because that corrupts the skill tree. Templar is difficult to get a good one, but you can get very strong Templar ones. And then the Eternal Empire one, in my opinion, is the hardest to make work. And that isn't a perfect explanation.
And now I'll do the same thing for synthesis.
Okay.
Hey, what do I do with my build? You go to this website, you click Control F, and you search for explosion.
But the thing with synthesis is you had to know what you wanted to find to control effort. So if you don't know what you're trying to find, you literally had to read everything.
You don't know either with this. What do you mean? If you don't have information from the outside, you just compare the situation to somebody asking a streamer.
It's the difference of having to know 1 of 5 to 1 of 1,000.
I'll give you the difference.
Sure.
In synthesis, to know the outcome, you have to first synthesize something. And then to know what that outcome was, you had to hit the right one. So you weren't even guaranteed to know the outcome after you synthesized it. In this league, you put in the jewel on your spot, you look at the node, now you know. Next.
That's so not true. Come on, you can't.
How is that not true?
You could play this league for 3 months without any outside information, and you wouldn't gather as much as we know right now about these jewels. There's no way you could naturally just process this as an individual.
You just get 5 of the jewels. If you actually play the league
mechanic,
you try them in and you see what happens.
Some of the roles are quite rare, though.
Some of the roles are quite rare. But no, let's say, we'll use Rai's example. So I'm like, okay, so I'm playing synthesis. I've done what Raiz said. I've controlled F explosion. Right, now I need to try and find light radius on fucking rares. Then I need to find it, then I need to synthesize it, and then hit that fucking mod. And you're saying that's easier. Bullshit.
That's easier to comprehend, yeah. For sure.
I mean, in that specific example, there's
5.
There's problems even in that specific example, though, because light radius had 2 different kinds of light radius that would show up, which was hybrid with flat accuracy and hybrid with percent. And the hybrid with flat accuracy would add an extra roll to your pool because the flat accuracy had an implicit, but the percent accuracy didn't. So you'd have lower chances of hitting enemies explode if you went with the wrong kind of light radius.
I'm just saying that this is not an intuitive system at all.
No, I agree with you on that point. I don't think either of them are particularly intuitive, but I think it's a less complex beast.
Yeah. And it's much easier to approach because once you have a jewel, there's nothing stopping you from checking exactly what this jewel does for you.
Yeah.
Except not having a Scion with all the jewel slots unlocked. But that beyond that, I mean, it would be nice if we could like have a.
I just think you guys approach this as a whole and not as an individual too much. Like as an individual, I don't think it's simple to process at all. Like as a collective, you know, group of people that we've got like this knowledge that we can share. Yeah, sure, but you're like trying to fucking figure out, you know, whether spell damage gives damage to your fucking minions that cast spells, and at the same time you toss something like this and it's supposed to be intuitive. I don't know.
One of the things about it though that makes it like not as egregious, even if it were to like compare basically equally to Synthesis in terms of obscurity, is that Timeless Jewels are not nearly as core. Like they are a nice addition to Legion, but for most people you can safely just ignore Timeless Jewels if you want to. You don't even have to think about them, and Legion is still a great mechanic where you just get to kill some monsters in a big square and like go and do the Timeless domain fight and sell off your jewel for whatever baseline market price is. I recommend that you give a Karui or a Mariketh jewel a try, because as Tarke said, if you find a decent one, they're basically just a better rare jewel. But it's not like Synthesis Crafting, where it was touted as a core portion of the mechanic, and like you feel like you're massively missing out if you're not interacting with it.
The best thing about Synthesis, which I've kept trying to interrupt people to say it, but we haven't mentioned it yet, is the fact that it actually promotes interacting with other players. So if you play with like 2 or 3 friends and one of you gets a jewel, you're like, hey, do you mind trying this jewel out in your build so we can see what it does there? Playing in a private... Say that again, sorry?
You said Synthesis.
Sorry, I meant Timeless Jewels with the Legion. Okay. Sorry, I got confused. But yeah. So because like I'm playing in a private league, it's a pretty tight-knit community. Someone's like, oh, we got this jewel. Has anyone got a Ranger that we can try? So I'm like, yeah, we'll try it in Ranger. And even if you play completely solo and you have no friends and you're playing in Trade League and everyone's a scammer, if you've played like 2 or 3 builds this league, you can be like, I wonder what this does on my Marauder. And that makes it fun. And it's like, maybe it's a little bit tedious having to put it in your stash and go into your other characters to check, but it gives that extra level of excitement. And so even if you play completely solo, and you've never interacted with another human being, and you don't know about the level 28 Scion trick, because that's something that not many people know about, if you've played like 2 builds this league with more than 1 jewel, you can be like, I wonder what it does on my other character. And then you're like, oh shit, this is really cool. Maybe I actually want to play a build in this part of the skill tree now, because that's sick. And like I've had that where I'm like, oh my god. So I hit one of my jewels when I was trying to roll them, is I have a 30% fortify effect, 10% fizz taken as fire, double damage jewel from Karui right under Acro. And I'm like, if I ever made a bow champion, that would be sick right there, because I'd be taking all of those nodes anyway. That is perfect. I had no inclination to ever make a bow champion. Now I'm seriously considering making that build.
Yeah, but you're also a person who plays for 3 months in a league, right? I really wonder if like another player is going to be like, oh man, 30% increased damage, I'm going to reroll another character. Like
a 30% increased damage is the same as 30% fortify attacks, double damage, and 10% fizz taken as fire? Sure, it's the exact same thing, dude.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good system for sure.
Is there anything wrong with rewarding players who like that kind of stuff?
I mean, like I said, it's not as core a mechanic as the crafting was to Synthesis. Like it's meant to be in game chase in a way. It's meant to be one of those things you slowly perfect over time. You know, I've run into that. I think I've gone through like 6 different Karui jewels on my build as I've been min-maxing it and pushing it down deeper.
I've gone through 3 different Val jewels on the build I'm currently playing. Like, and that's the thing as well. It's like you see someone like Dan is playing with the block jewel, and now you're like, shit, maybe I want to play a block jewel now. I've never played a block build before. And that's really cool, and that's really fun. And even if you only play 1 build a league, the fact that you're like, oh, I've now got this really strong block jewel, you're now considering completely respecking your character. And that's really fun and really exciting. And you don't have to trade to know about that. You just need to put the jewel in the build. And since people have been mentioning Headhunter, which we will talk about in a little bit, a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually get Timeless Jewels in maps. They don't only drop from the Monolith. It's rare, but generals can drop them in maps.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the very start of the league, Mariketh jewels
Oh.
were bugged and couldn't drop from
That was
timeless
the only
conflict.
the only way they were dropping was from general.
So the only source of them was
Oh.
from maps, which is why they were like 40x for the first week.
And now they're like, I don't know how much they're. How much are they in trade league now?
I paid like 50C for one.
Yeah, cheap.
I feel bad for anyone who like, I don't know, did a deal where they loaned one over for a couple X so they could get the challenge completion early. You know, the people who really push 40/40 as quickly as possible, because there's a challenge to assign America Keystone. So anyone who paid big bucks for that challenge completion early on probably feel a little shitty when they fix the bug and they go down to being like sub 1x each.
But so getting into the Monolith side of things now, have we all done like the Monolith encounters now?
Mm-hmm.
I've not been farming them or anything, but I've run them a couple times.
Raiz? Have you,
I haven't done it.
You haven't done one at
Done
all?
it?
No,
Not
I
even
don't know. I haven't an opportunity, but I'm just. The headhunter
Throw it
pisses
in
me
there.
off. I'll be honest. Like it
Good.
just.
Yes.
You okay? Right. I just need
Feel
to
the
say,
hate.
I just need to say one thing before we have the stupid headhunter discussion. You still, as a completely solo player with an okay build, you will profit doing 3-way encounters. You don't need to have a headhunter to make money. With 4-way encounters, you need a half-decent build to profit without using any headhunter shenanigans. I did a 5-way encounter yesterday for the first time just to kind of like prove a point. It went awfully. I got like 2 rows of loot, and I got
The
like
boss-
nothing from it.
The bosses are absurdly
Yeah, too much HP.
in 5-way fights.
Way too much
They're
HP.
they're ridiculous. It's not even really like that risky
No.
if you compare it to other in-game stuff. Like
That's
they're
just
not nearly
really-
as rippy as something like
yeah.
Uber Elder, for instance. It's just a speed and DPS check.
Mm.
So it's if you're a solo player, you don't have headhunt, you don't have inspired learnings, you don't have a million prophecies, and you're like clicking the prophecies to steal the buffs that way. Then yeah, 3-way encounters you'll make money. If you've got a decent build, 4-way encounters you'll make money. Like just it's a fact. So I don't see why the headhunter thing should stop you from doing a 2-way encounter, Raiz.
Through encounters,
It's not interesting to me. That's all.
3 and 4s are starting, like, as more and more people pile into the market and jewels become less and less profitable. I think the profit to be made from 3 and 4 ways is getting more and more limited for people who aren't min-maxing it hard, at least in trade softcore. That's not to say like it isn't there, but it's diminishing.
I don't know. Obviously, I come at this from a weird point of view because I play in a small private league economy. But from like even looking in on the trade league stuff,
Wait a minute. That's right. How can you say it's profitable? What?
because I've spoken to people playing in trade league and they're like, yeah, I still make my money in 3-way encounters.
Yeah, I
Are
don't
they
think
buying
it's
the,
wrong that it's
um,
profitable.
They're not
It's
buying
just-
them; they're just running the things that you get. Like you just run it. I on average, if I do a 3-way encounter, on average, I'll get like 1 timeless jewel. I very regularly get just exalts for some reason. Like I very regularly just get raw exalts from it.
Well, that's going to be skewing your results a bit, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get a bunch of incubators, you'll get a couple of div cards, and then if you're doing 3-way encounters, you get some like mid-70 shape items, which they're worthless because they're not like, I know. But from the incubators, from the jewels, the uniques that you get, and then you randomly get like the big payouts of like exalts or like, because you tend to run a lot of the Val ones as well, so you get like corrupted 6 links sometimes and all that other stuff. I don't know.
So whenever anyone tries to determine whether or not what they're doing is, worth it. So when you say 4 and 5-way encounters, are we looking at average drops versus just selling the emblem? Is that the
And
that
putting
how
in
you
the time to
determine it?
complete it.
You're talking as if it's like a 20-minute encounter, dude. 3-way encounters, what, 4
What?
minutes?
No, they don't take that long.
It doesn't matter. Look at that. Time is time. Time spent is time. It's like, okay, Tarke, your argument is flawed from the very beginning.
Okay,
It makes
okay.
no sense.
Okay.
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 Like it's
Educate
as
me.
if you were to, it's because marketplace will always end up in a certain spot. Like this will always manage itself. Like it will always even out. So it can't be always profitable. It can't always like be rewarding. Because if it is, then the market price adjusts. One thing goes up, the other thing goes down, it evens out so that it's efficient time-wise for everybody. Now, if you include a headhunter into an encounter like that kind of skews the numbers because one player is finishing the encounter 5 times faster than the other one, right? Like,
No. They're getting more out of it.
And getting more out of it, yeah.
You don't finish it faster.
Finish
It's
it
time
No,
faster.
I mean, it's not
Time.
faster than the 5 minutes, but you get more shit done, yeah.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, since I've read some people say... So in softcore trades, some people aren't picking up Kurui splinters, right? Because they're too cheap. Is that
There's
true?
some people skipping them, yeah.
Right. So you're getting all the people who are like filtering out the splinters. The Kurui, Eternal, and Val are cheap. Those are just like cheap splinters. They're not worth much. The Templars and the Maraketh. So if you were just like the average like solo player in softcore trade league, I would say 100% sell your Templars, sell your Maraketh, just run your Kurui, your Eternal Empire, and your Val. And you're not losing money. You're not like... It's not like the headhunter police are like cranking open your stash and stealing all your exalts. Like you're not like fucking yourself by running those.
I mean, you get good loot from running these. Like even though it's like slightly slower builds, it's good. It's like the stuff you get in there is good.
The 3-way fight is like 30 chaos. You get that much loot. How much is a Kurui jewel, a Var jewel, and an Eternal Empire jewel in softcore?
It's 32 to 36 chaos for a 3-way fight, somewhere in that range, depending on like what time you're able to buy the emblems. Okay. The Vol jewels, like Nugi said earlier, if you land on a Dorian, I think that's worth a good bit. The Karui jewels are like 12C each or something. One second. And I'm not sure how much the Eternal ones are worth, but I'm pretty sure they're like just garbage tier in terms of profit because not many people are using the Hubris.
So...
Yeah, Elegant Hubris is 5C. Lethal Pride.
Right, so if you hit a Val jewel in a 3-way, you're profiting. If you hit...
Lethal Pride is 20.
Right, Lethal Pride is 20. So that way you're nearly breaking even. And then if you get the Eternal Empire, that's nothing. And that's pretending that nothing else drops. So if you're playing a decent build, you regularly get a jewel every 3-way. That's a better return than if you're running like Shaper. Because like that's the thing as well, because if you think about it like a boss, like a lot of the times when you're running bosses, it's like there's one drop, which is where you get all your money, and then the other drops are kind of like whatever, so you're throwing your money away. So it seems like any other boss run to me, where it's like you're just running bosses so that when you hit the good outcome, you make all your money back, and that's ignoring the fact that you get a bunch of, raw currency drop, the incubators, the div cards, the 6 sockets, the maps, and all the other bullshit that can drop.
And the fun of the encounter.
And the fact it's actually fun encounter, exactly.
That's why I run them right now, because I might not be like making big bucks. My builds are like all right for them, but I know the fact that there's I don't do the high ones. Like I just stay away. Like until I have a build where I feel comfortable. And that's like my problem with the Headhunter is that I feel like I'm like putting myself at such a disadvantage running some of the higher stuff that I'm like, what's even the point? Right? It's like you're just gonna end up knowing that that other guy had 5 rows and you're gonna come out with 2 and you're gonna be like, well, that sucked. And I don't want to leave an encounter with that feeling where I'm like, well, that sucked.
Toriani ones are only like 25C as well. There's actually like not a big hit jewel out of the 3-ways, so you're
no,
you're at best really getting 25 to 30C out of your jewel. So you're relying on the other drops to make your money back for sure.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is it's not a complete waste of time to do it.
I mean,
he just said the opposite.
When I was doing them, I was making a moderate profit and breaking even at worst. But I was doing them much earlier on in the league when any Lethal Pride sold for like 30C. At the point we're at now, they're selling for like 15 or so. And I don't expect that to ever go up. So that's why I'm saying the value is diminishing. Like you're relying more and more and more on the random drops. So it's a difficult market to get into because of how streamlined it's become by the people at the top end.
And out of interest, how much is that stuff selling for in hardcore, which is the league that Raiz plays?
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of those prices.
No idea. Nobody plays hardcore anyway, dude.
Well, you fucking play it, you cunt. So it's...
Fucking dead game, dude.
You're not nobody, Raiz. You're better than
Well,
that.
like the thing is, like the prices just adjust so slowly, and there can be such a shift, and a single player can control an entire market in hardcore. It just, yeah.
A lethal pride in hardcore is 70 chaos.
There you go.
Lethal pride.
Big money. I gotta start doing it, I guess. I mean, shit.
The thing which pisses me off is Raiz is gonna actually do this like the last week of Legion. He's like, guys, shit's really good. You should totally do this.
Like in one way. I'm not trying to say that it's a bad encounter or anything. It's just it turns me away. It's like the same way. Like I really like the idea of Volt Jewels. I really enjoyed them. I think they're a great idea. I think there's a lot of upsides. I think there's a lot of things you can control, like you mentioned yourself. But personally, when I'm making a build, I'm not super interested in it because it's very difficult. Well, depending on the build, for like other players to replicate the specific thing that I'm going for. So that kind of, because I'm making a build guide, that kind of like diminishes the value of that and makes it less interesting for me personally. But I'm not gonna say like, oh, it's a bad concept because I don't like it, right? Like, and this is the same thing. I mean, just because I don't want to run the encounter doesn't mean that it's like a necessarily a bad thing. But there's clearly a rich gets, the rich gets richer and then the poor gets poorer type of shit, and I just don't like that in PoE. I think it's if it's a knowledge-based game, I can totally get behind that. If it's a equip one item and you're just gonna be blasting through, that's a little bit of a different thing.
I completely
It's like the
agree.
Bisco
Because
problem
no
as well.
one's ever gotten like a Chaos Orb drop this league, right? All the people who haven't got Headhunter, they can't make any currency in Legion.
I think it's not that they can't make the currency to fund their build, because they can, just go run Legion in T2 mets in like Glacier alleyways or something. Pardon.
Money.
Yeah, like Legion is a obscenely rewarding mechanic. If you take the time to slam face into maps for a few hours, you'll have some money. But it's more that you feel locked out of the fun end game thing, because you could make more money on average by just selling your Mariketh emblem or selling your Templar emblem. And it's getting to the point where you could make more money on average by selling your lower tier emblems too. And it's a new shiny league mechanic. People want to go
Didn't
do
we
the
have the
domain
same
of
thing in
Timeless
Breach? I
Conflict.
can't remember.
Oh, you mean
I'll
like
give
with
you
Kingula and stuff?
Selling like
So in
splinters
Breach-
instead of running. Like, wasn't it only very few people were running Chayula? Most people just selling it.
Yes.
Partially that was. Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay, because I wanted to mention Breach here as a comparison, because Breach, in comparison to the timeless encounters, in Breach, if you can complete it just barely, you got as much as the people who were just blasting through. There was like a minimum amount, like there was like a just barely completing it and you can feel really good about yourself. Just barely completing a timeless whatever zone is just not dying, right? Then you've practically completed it, the timer runs out, and you can get shit. So there is this like Breach, actually, if you could manage to keep within the timer and kill the boss, you got just as much out of your stone than anyone else, and you didn't feel like you wasted anything. It might just be barely being able to be the best rush, but you got there. And you got everything you wanted. All the rewards are yours on even terms with everyone else. With the Headhunter, it's like, it is so absurd in power compared to everything else. Like even Biscos, when Biscos like, oh, you need to have Biscos in your build. This doesn't even come close. And there's like every build ends up, it just looks the same.
I mean,
There's
it's
like
always
activity there.
There's no progression. You either have it or you don't have it. That's it.
Exactly. It's such a binary thing.
It's always been the case in Path of Exile that having the Headhunter, whatever, having the efficient build, doing the thing but faster is going to give you better returns. But you always get the same amount of value out of your like Shaper set or out of your Kula stone. So your value came from being able to run another Shaper set more quickly than the next guy and being able to roll the dice again more quickly. But with a Headhunter and a set of timeless emblems, you can weight the dice now. You're not rolling another set of dice that are as equally fair and balanced as everyone else's dice, but you're doing it again and faster. No, you're rolling just straight up better dice than everyone else because you're getting way more kills and you're getting way more bosses. And that right there is where the feeling of powerless inequality comes from for a lot of players who are never going to be able to reach that kind of echelon of power.
Before we get into like the actual like Headhunter is the problem discussion, I do just want to say though that from having spoken to Grim a lot this league and having watched a lot of his videos and talking about his findings, there's a very big difference between a properly set up group who know what they're doing and two people who just happen to have equipped a Headhunter and happen to equip a support. Like, you're still going to make a lot more money with a Headhunter than someone who hasn't got a Headhunter, but the amount of returns that a well-organized Headhunter group will have compared to a not organized Headhunter group, like, there's a massive gulf there as well, just because there is so many ways to, like, even in the way, like, the certain order when they skip, when they time their buffs, like, when they go for the Templar dude because he has an immunity phase. There are lots of like different ways of taking that stuff.
That doesn't really have anything to do with the Headhunter. That's more like just understand the encounter. That can be applied to any.
For people looking on from the outside, that feels like saying, you know, there's a massive gulf between the company that's raking in $1 billion and the company that's raking in 10. Like, there is that order of magnitude there, but it's still obviously, well, either one of those is well and away above what you can hope to achieve with those same timeless emblems if you're not at that baseline, which is Headhunter / inspired learning. Like, that's the entry point. You can go further, but that entry point is binary.
So what are we saying the solution is? One, is this a problem that has to be fixed?
If Legion goes core, the meta will develop to the point where it's even more like, I guess the word I'm looking for is like crystallized than this, where you're going to see people rush the Headhunter immediately if they're interested in Timeless and go for that immediately. And the prices of the Timeless emblems are going to skyrocket faster, and it's going to become less viable for the average player more quickly because obviously a lot of this stuff is already solved. People will have the strategies. So if Timeless emblems are ever going to be profitable for the average player, yes, this is a problem.
Well, the thing is, too, it's even bad for the people that like Headhunter because it's like a lot less accessible because of that. Because like a group of people can corner a market, you know, and just get all the Headhunters and further profit from that. So, yeah, I mean, if it's not going to grow into being a big problem this league, it will next league. Because I think Legion's definitely going core.
I would like it to. So what are we saying then? Are we saying that Headhunter should be disabled in this thing, or is Headhunter always an issue? Because Headhunter has always made more money per hour for the guy with the Headhunter.
Has been an issue for a long time.
But the key difference is what I mentioned earlier, where it makes more money per hour, but it doesn't make more money per like map invested.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know, you can run another map more quickly because you finish that map way faster than someone else could, but like
you're not getting more loot out of 100 maps. You're getting more loot because you do 200 maps in the time it takes the person to do 100.
Yeah, and that's a really key difference because it means that maps don't go up in value for you as compared to someone else. I don't know. I personally, I know that Noogie and possibly Raiz are maybe going to disagree with me on this point, but I don't think Headhunter is a core problem with the game. I kind of like Headhunter's existence, even though I almost never go for it myself. But I think it's a core problem with Timeless. Like, it needs to not work as well as it does in there.
I think it's too easy of a, like, it's too easy to in PoE, it's too easy to identify that is the best. I think that's a problem, that it's gotten to that point. It's
I mean,
the
it's
same
always
thing
been
with
like that,
Viscos.
then, hasn't it?
What,
Ever since
Headhunter?
Headhunters existed, it's always been obviously.
which
If
is
you
why
can
it's a
afford it,
problem.
it's always been the best.
Oh, yeah, sort of. Yeah, it's been a
that's not true.
gradual thing. It's been a gradual. After Reflect was like changed,
Okay,
that's kind of when it really just went the other way.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Like,
It used
when
to
we
be very
didn't have the
common. There
random-
used to be in Nemesis Headhunters were like 30C items. Everybody
It
was
was a
dropping them on
big
level.
risk to run a Headhunter
Yeah.
for a while. Big risk, and that was the good thing. That's when it worked. Like, that's why I didn't really have a big problem with it. When there was like this huge risk attached to it, it's like, oh, you could Shroud Walk straight into your death, or shoot into one Reflect pack. you gain the wrong mod, and you even through wall pack, you one-shot yourself, and it happened so many times.
I mean, to be fair,
That was
though, that
cool.
was a completely different game, because that was back when the game was primarily hardcore.
Exactly.
Like, it was completely different.
Well,
Nemesis,
but even
it was
then,
still
there was
vastly
this
hardcore
risk.
playlist.
There was this risk-reward thing with the item itself, which suited PoE more than it does now, where it's like everyone should eventually just get a headhunter, and there's no real reason why you shouldn't.
Do you think something along those lines could be used as a balancing mechanism for it? A Nemesis mod that is straight up just not good to steal? Another
Yeah.
Shroud Walker-esque effect?
Stuff that just
I don't know what
messes
that
you
would
up.
look
Yeah,
like.
yeah. Add stuff like that. I'm fine. Yeah.
Maybe a Nemesis kind of monster that just like summons frost walls or something. So when you steal it, you summon frost walls all over the place and
Well, then
makes
you
it
just
more
use
awkward to map.
phasing in your build, and then...
True.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. It's the first thing that popped in my head. There's room there, though.
I mean, all the issues with headhunters have been slowly phased out over time, and we're left with something that is as mandatory. Like, we feel it is as mandatory if you want to play the game efficiently as Abyssgos was.
I think there's quite a big difference between a Biscos and a Headhunter, though, because when you equipped Biscos, and again, we're not talking about the belt, we're talking about the amulet, you didn't feel more powerful, you just got more shit drop. Whereas with Headhunter, you feel more powerful.
I mean, the speed meta. Speed is power, speed is
Do
loot,
we think that
is...
PoE loses anything by deleting Headhunter, deleting Inspired Learning?
Well, that's kind of the basic
I don't
argument.
think so.
That, I agree. I'm somewhat on board with that. That like Headhunter, it's problematic at times, but it is also just kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like, there's merit to that argument, honestly.
Octavian, I could
agree.
be completely misremembering. I think it was you. Didn't you make a video about there not being chase items in PoE anymore?
That was a long time ago. But yeah, I made a video about how I felt chase uniques were kind of diminishing in value. This was also back when like boss drops were barely worth anything, which is becoming partially an issue now, where like Starforge is kind of the only thing worth chasing. Have you looked at the none of you guys probably have because you don't play the league, but the softcore trade market for Shaper uniques is kind of laughable. Like Dying Sun is like 30 or something. Yeah, no. It's nice that there's another chase item from Shaper, but it just seems so difficult, maybe close to impossible, to balance boss drops in the context of a massive league like softcore
Was there
trade.
a chase item on softcore previously from Shaper? I mean, was Solstice Vigil really worth much? And like an Impresence worth much?
Solstice Vigil was worth a decent amount in a Winter Orb meta. I don't know if it's like approaching Starforge levels of value now. I actually haven't looked at the prices recently.
How much were like Eternity Shrouds and stuff last league?
I can find that information out, actually. There's a website that keeps track of that once.
Because like on hardcore, yeah, these things shift very differently, I feel like. Because there's always a base value to it. Like no matter what. Even, there's a time when even gloves paid off like the set, because there's always that intrinsic risk of like actually doing the encounter.
Bossing on hardcore was a lot of fun. The one time I played hardcore trade, it's what I did to get all the money together, and it was a lot more rewarding of an experience, I gotta say. I don't know that you can ever reach that level of rewarding in a massive softcore trade environment.
I mean, this is entirely the reason why I don't play softcore trade league, even though I swapped to softcore from hardcore in Delve, because the economy is just fucked.
I guess that's the one thing with like the timeless jewels, where it's like this. It could be nice.
So
to your point earlier with having more, like just you got the big one.
The peak of Eternity Shroud and Synthesis was 1,400 chaos, and the trough was somewhere around 500. So it was pretty profitable the whole way through. The lowest point.
Oh.
So anywhere from like 500 something chaos up to 1,500 chaos, depending on when you were lucky enough to get it to drop.
Damn. But that was also Did Solstice Vigil come out last league or the league before?
Well, that was Eternity Shroud. That came out last league.
Yeah.
I didn't look at Solstice Vigil.
I don't know. It's just a lot of people
same thing, I guess.
Cry about Headhunter in general, but like I think it's just more egregious this league because it's so obvious, and this is the first ever encounter we've had which had scaling loot drops like that. But
we've also
Oh, go on, sorry.
We've not had a boss encounter, like a, you know, this is the end game boss of the league that also happens to spawn alongside waves and waves of rare monsters. You know, Headhunter has never been the best bossing item. It's always been the best mapping item. It's never been the best bossing item. And now it's just the best everything item is what it feels like because of that. That's the problem. It's spilling over into parts of the game it's not supposed to dominate.
Because before this, like, if we talk about, like, the general player consensus, people used to bitch about Quant. People would always complain. People complain about, oh, supports and delve, and it's not fair, and it's bullshit. They're playing with friends. And do you know how I know this? Because like, every time we would bring on someone like MP or Grim onto Baeclast, every single time, hands down, we would be flooded with the exact same comments. Last episode, we didn't even have Grimro on the podcast. We just had his footage running in the background. And YouTube was flooded with people crying about how it was ruining the game. And we had the same thing in Delve when we had MP on talk about Delve. Whenever you have those kinds of players, people, they feel compared to it, so they push against it. Every time. If we have a hardcore discussion, people bitch because it's hardcore bias. It just happens.
The thing is, like, it's impossible to tell who's genuinely bitching because he has a like solid argument against it, and who's bitching because he doesn't have access to it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like Headhunter, but I don't want it removed from the game because I haven't seen and I can't present myself a solid argument as to why it should be gone, right? But like for a lot of people, I don't feel like they go through that thought process. They're just like, I can't get it, I don't like it, or I can't. Or some of them genuinely present something solid there, right? They can get it and they still don't like it, but they're just one person in like a sea of, well, people who can't.
So it's purely a timeless Monolith problem, not a Headhunter problem. Is that what we're kind of agreeing on?
I would say so, yeah.
Noogie seems to be thinking otherwise from his face.
I don't know. People are so reluctant to adjust anything that they've grown accustomed to. And I feel like people have just grown too accustomed to Headhunter, and there's like anything done to it is just sacrilege. It's like it's perfect the way it is. Nothing can change.
I think they could cap it. Like, I don't think that would be the end of the world.
Ooh.
I said
like
I said the
that's
same
even
thing
worse.
about
Some adjustments
the
to
S
it.
shield. Because like I've complained about the S shield a lot before. There are a lot of items which have infinite scaling, and just with the trend that PoE's gone and the fact that you can stack all of these together, that's where it becomes silly to me. The fact that you can do like Headhunter plus Inspired Learning plus S shield plus all of this, that's when I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit much.
See, I feel like that's almost worse. Like it's better in like the gaming community in general to like sweep things under the rug rather than like keep them on the table just kind of looking ugly. And so if you cap something, it's like a point of discussion and not really a change that like is long lasting. And that's almost scarier to me. But
Caps are never like that fun.
Well, no, but it's like, for example, we have limited to one like unique jewels. Why is Inspired Learning not limited to one?
It's limited in terms of how difficult
you
it
can
can be
pull
to
it.
fit
It's
into
pretty
a tree.
easy.
yeah.
I went through. It's pretty. No, so
Isn't it like 3 spots on the skill tree only?
There's quite a few good spots for it. There's Ranger is good, Shadow is good, Templar is good. You can make it work in Duelist, you can make it work in Witch, but the main 3 are Templar, Ranger, Shadow.
Yeah.
Like the last time I used an Inspired Learning was when I was racing in Mayhem, but it was like the last few leagues of me playing hardcore. It was like Harby. I think Harby was my last week in hardcore, but yeah, but like Harby,
Those are
Mayhem,
the only ones.
Turmoil.
There's nothing else. You can't fit it anywhere else, can you? I don't think so.
You can put it in Duelist.
Yeah,
It gives you an insane amount of power. It's just
Duelist, yeah.
You cap some of these other jewels because what? Because getting more is too powerful, but you then allow Inspired Learning. There's that kind of a disconnect there.
Like that
where it's
makes
like
sense to me.
It's okay to have a cap one place, but not on Inspired Learning. It's like why?
But anyway, the point I was trying to
be on that one.
the point I was trying to make this is like, so that was the last time I played with it because I was racing with it. I was doing it with hardcore, and it was just like there wasn't really any opportunity cost because if you're playing a build which goes fast, inspired learning was worth more offense and defense than any other 10 skill points on my skill tree. So the opportunity cost of it's like, oh, I need to put it here. It's like, fuck off. You just put it in your build because it just makes your build better.
Okay, what if they?
I was playing KB mines with like
Changed it.
10k life, 20k energy shield, and you're like, oh, but like 5 skill points. It's like, it gives a fuck.
Okay, what if we take the other approach? What if we remove Headhunter, but instead make it so that you can have like 4 inspired learnings or something?
Then no, you're joking.
Where it's
but that
like
would,
more
that would
gradual.
that would make the game way worse.
Or
'cause
10.
then it would make builds very cookie cutter because it would be only the builds in that part of the skill tree. No, if it was me, it like I think it's a bit lame how this league people with Headhunter make obviously so much more money. Like I made a point. I literally recorded a video yesterday, which was me doing a 5-way emblem fight, and it was disappointing. I have a lot of fun doing the 3-way encounters and the 4-way encounters. It felt like a complete waste of time and money. I did it just because YouTube people want to see that. I think it's a real shame. I don't want to see them to delete it. If they were to do anything, I would limit inspired learning to 1. I would put a cap on S shield. And I would have it so that Headhunter, I either make it so ridiculously rare that there's genuinely like 2 in the whole fucking league. I don't think that stuff like Legion should give Headhunters. That's one problem as well. Like they nerf the rarity of Headhunter, but then Legion is like fucking reigning. We have.
I mean, Headhunter is the carrot on the stick for absolutely
everything. But we
everything.
have 3 Headhunters in my private league. We have about 50 active players. That's like 1 a week. That's ridiculous.
Tarke, they put that shit on everything. Encouraging can give you a Headhunter. Delve can give you a Headhunter. Shaper Strongholds can give you a Headhunter. There's like 17 different div card sets that can. Legion can give you a Headhunter.
Yeah, it's too much.
It is a carrot on a stick on every single league mechanic because it is the iconic PoE item.
I don't think it's... Is it though? Is it like truly more accessible than what it was previously?
No, I feel like it's probably
less so.
rarer because of the lack of nemesis in the map device. Chancing into them was a big source, but it does feel like sort of a fallback for them.
The
like,
fact that someone can
how do we make people want to do our put a
ridiculous.
Headhunter in it?
That's what happened. Like that. I think we got ours on like day 1, day 2 of the league. Before the guy even got to fucking maps, he had a Headhunter. That shouldn't happen.
That doesn't matter.
No, what do you mean? You can't spend the last like 30 minutes crying about how you haven't done an Embless fight because Headhunter is so ridiculous and be like, it's fine, he got it at level 50. Like, what?
Yeah, because I don't know. I honestly like the idea of like put a Headhunter on it. Like to me, that's way better than what it was before because
we have
it's
mirrors
not more
for that.
accessible, but you do get to do like more things. So,
but like that's the thing though, is like we have mirrors for that. It's like you could make a level 1 character and you could get a mirror and you will remember that for the rest of your entire PoE life. I still haven't had a mirror drop. I'm waiting for the day that I get a mirror drop. I don't need a level 40 or 50 Headhunter for that feeling, because I'll eventually, please Chris, I'll eventually get that with a mirror.
But did you get the Headhunter?
No. I don't see why it should drop in random content. It should be rare as fuck. It's the most powerful item in Path of Exile. It should be rare.
The problem that generates, though, is if you have content like Timeless Conflict, it doesn't eliminate the problem. It just even further diminishes the number of people who are making the most money versus the number of people who can't. And you have like, instead of having the 1%, you have the 0.01% or something.
You know what I would like for the Timeless Conflict to fix the Headhunter problem? Every time you reset, so
wipes the buffs or something?
No. This is not a nerf to the Headhunter, but it's let's just make it Timeless Conflicts even more ridiculous. You know, one of the reasons why Headhunter is so good is because it can clear everything out and then reset, and then everything spawns again. How about you spawn everything every time? So every time you reset, it's just same amount of shit just always spawns.
What if you
And
Okay,
everyone
so
can get
buff
as much
Headhunter.
loot as possible.
what about the world where you make a build that can still kill everything?
That
And
just
now
makes
you're
Headhunter
you're
better
spawning
and
things
normal builds
faster.
worse.
And now
Yeah.
you're doing it even more. Like they thought that we wouldn't get past Delve 1500. GGG doesn't have a clear picture of the kind of power level that players can achieve. So I don't think they can buff the timeless domain enemies to the point where you can't make a build that can absolutely demolish them and then continue to benefit from their faster respawn rate, if I'm understanding your suggestion correctly.
You've said you have a
No, not
problem
the
with
fast,
on-kill
it's
effects,
just-
and
right,
you want
so
to add more sources of on-kill effects.
Me?
Yeah.
No. I want to have the same amount of monsters spawning for people who run Headhunter as the people who don't.
But
I'm
the
not sure-
Headhunter guys are getting stronger because they're getting more buffs.
No, they get the same
No,
amount.
it's the same amount. That's what he's
They
trying
get
to
the
say.
exact
Explain
same
it again,
amount.
Nuki. Tarke was
We
we
must
listening
have-
quite
misunderstood.
clearly.
Me,
Tarke
Okay.
It's
was
me
listening.
and Octavian don't get it.
shh.
Okay.
Were you
Right.
like reading something,
So
Tarke?
what you do is that you have a set amount of spawns throughout the entire encounter, and you just make it so that more shit spawns for the people who don't clear everything in one round.
So you're saying remove the timer completely and just have a set amount of waves?
No. You can still have the timer. It's just by the end, if you don't clear things enough, you might have 100 rares shooting at you.
You get
So the
overrun.
Headhunter
So it
guy will
doesn't
still.
matter. Okay, I see what you mean. It doesn't matter if you manage to kill
Yeah,
them
but
or
then-
not. The next wave spawns on top of the current.
Yeah.
Doesn't that end up like? Well, no.
But that's
never mind.
like, because that's what Breach did. Right? You had the same amount of shit all the way up to the boss, and you had to keep up. If you couldn't keep up, you fucking died. That was great.
Yeah, but then it becomes trivial at this point, right? Do we worry about like the longevity of a system like that? Because now it's kind of trivial to people, right? Like running a breach stone, it's really just everybody
Wouldn't
does
that
it. At
also
that
make
point,
the
it was
lag a lot worse as well? Because the lag is a
Sure.
really big issue in 5-way encounters.
I mean, that might be it.
just get a
There
better
could be
PC,
more
lol.
issues. I'm just
Come on.
saying that the problem with Headhunter is that it allows you to get a lot more rares to spawn. So the way to alleviate that is give other players more rares. And
I
deal
don't
with
think
the
it's
issues
the
that come
rares,
from
it's the
that.
fact that they can global the generals. Because the generals are health sponge. The main issue on the 5-way counts is the generals are real health sponges. So the way
But
that
all the rows of loot is from all the rares.
and the generals.
I mean, how much are the generals really in that equation
If
compared
it's
to
like
all
the
the
Maraketh
rares?
jewels and stuff, quite a lot.
Yeah,
Not
and
so
from what
much
The
now.
actual row, like the visual thing you see on the bottom, like having all these stacked rows, it's from all the rares you're killing. There's like a timer set to the. You could have a super high single target build and just go from like general to general, and you can kill it.
Yeah.
But you don't get that many rows because you don't kill all the other stuff.
Stop playing 0 DPS builds. Generals literally die in 3 seconds on Cyclone. I was killing them pretty
You can
quickly
kill
in
them.
5 ways on my Lightning Trapper. But it's the fact that the Templar, if you don't instantly global it and you get the invulnerability phase, that's when you're like, fuck. Because you have to run around in circles to get rid of the things, then you kill it.
I mean,
But,
people can int the Shaper. I mean, I guess they can int a general. So
I don't. The issue, like, I don't think it's a bad problem, but I don't think it solves the issue where the average guy is feeling locked out. Because I feel like the main issue with Timeless is the average guy feels locked out because he isn't, like, insane god mode. So you either just accept there's always going to be the god mode thing, or you make it more accessible for people lower down. And your solution doesn't fix that.
no, but my solution fixes the idea that you need a headhunter to get all the profit, which is the only problem.
I think
Honestly,
a set
that's
amount
the
of waves
only
would
problem
do it.
with this is that you're like locked out of the profit that you could have gotten with a headhunter. The fact that you can't manage something is fine. Sometimes you
I know
build
you
this-
remove the immunity, you run around the Templars, but the thing is, it's just like, wouldn't a set amount of waves just achieve that much easier? Because then it doesn't matter how fast you clear it. You then just need to clear it fast enough to get the waves.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
It does take away some of the identity of the fight, though. Like, I think it's meant specifically to be a break from something like Shaper or Uberelder, where you have, you know, you put in the set, you get this amount of fight, whatever it is.
That's true. I mean, there is a chasing the amount of rare things, but there's some fun in that. I get it. It's just kind of.
Since we've spent a particularly long time on the whole Headhunter thing, one thing I did actually want to talk about this league, super have asked me a lot about it, and people in chat said it a lot. What do we think about the fact that it's like in softcore, it's on like 42% of the league is Slayer and like 48% of the league is Cyclone or something?
Hell yeah.
Um,
I'm about it.
there's a lot of people have compared it to Winter Orb last league, and I think it's less problematic than Winter Orb because there's more diversity within Cyclone builds than there was within like the Winter Orb meta. You know, Cyclone is such a powerful standalone skill that you can justify it as champion or slayer or berserker or chieftain or hell, I could list almost every ascendancy in the game. Basically, you can find a justifiable version, whether it be pure Cyclone or castle channeling or cast on crit. So I think it's certainly less problematic than that. What I would like to see is some of the other melee skills brought up to feeling as good as Cyclone does, but I think that's just really a really difficult ask mechanically for a lot of them. You know, they feel a lot better than they did before. Something like Dominating Blow, I used that a little bit, and still it started crashing my game over and over again. Or something like Viper Strike or Dual Strike, you know, these name locking skills, the improvement certainly helped, but I just don't think you can keep their mechanical identity while having them feel as good as Cyclone. Like, that's just fundamentally not going to happen. And we're past the honeymoon phase here with the melee changes, and people are coming back around to realize that. You know,
if
like,
they didn't
despite
nerf...
your question, despite your question to Jonathan, I don't think Viper Strike is, just provided it doesn't get reworked significantly, ever going to feel as good as Cyclone.
I mean,
Cyclone's trash. I don't think it's that good of a skill. It's a great skill. You can do a lot of damage. It's a great entry skill. I feel if it feels good, I think a lot of other skills are going to catch up very rapidly. I think a lot of people are going to start playing a lot more other stuff. It's just like the thing to do.
I've seen one
other
question
skills
I want to
play
ask.
well.
If they
it's just a feeling, you know? It just feels really good.
Oh, yeah.
If they didn't nerf Cyclone or Slayer, would you expect the same amount of representation next league when the hype is on something else? Because I think a lot of this is hype.
Everybody's going to be playing casters next league. What do you mean?
That's exactly my point, though. That's why, like, people are saying they have to nerf Cyclone, and I think a lot of it is hype, which is kind of what you just said. I feel like next league it won't be as much of an issue.
I think it scales a little bit too well with weapon range in AoE. It's like maybe a little bit too much of the weapon range stuff adding on there. I think it's great we have scaling, but so weapon range is essentially all radius because it always adds one radius, and the more radius you get, the stronger it gets. So it's like they've reinvented, you know, quadratic scaling AoE, but only for Cyclone, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because you've played a lot of melee this league. Why is it, do you think, that Cyclone's in the special position where all the other melee skills don't have that?
Because it goes both ways. Because everything else is a cone in front of you.
But what I mean is, aren't there a lot of abilities that don't scale with both weapon range and radius?
The only skill that scales is, isn't it? Oh, maybe, no, you're right. There are other skills, like, I think Cleave.
No, but that's exactly my point, is why...
That's also just radius. It's only that, right, with weapon range and AoE. Yeah.
So why is it that's the only ability that gets both? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think that's flawed, but I also think it's pretty cool in the way that you can personalize it, and I think that's why Cyclone's so popular. Because like Cyclone covers all the bases of all the things that everybody's been looking for in a melee build. You want to do a lot of damage, you go Champion, you get Impale. You want to do a lot of AoE, you go Slayer. You want to go Zoom, you go Gladiator. You want to go all of the things, but with a little bit of a build-up, you go Berserker. You can cover all your bases, and it's just one of those skills that you can really customize to your personal use. And we just haven't had that for a long time, you know. With Winter, even with like the comparison with Winter, like you play Trickster or you play it the right way, which is Elementalist. I mean, that was kind of like...
like I said, it's a much healthier meta skill.
Yeah, I think so too.
But also, not only that, there's the fact that Winter Orb, for some people, even though they wanted to play it, they just couldn't get over the playstyle of it. Whereas with Cyclone, no one's like, oh, it just doesn't feel right. I have to time it.
Good.
Yeah, that's like that's the thing. It feels good. You know.
And you can clearly feel an improvement to. There's a real sense of like feeling of improvement when you play Cyclone. Like it's very impactful when you make upgrades, and you can go from like just spinning for like half a second to having to spin for like 3 seconds, and then the AOE slowly growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. It just never stops, and that's great. Honestly, I wish, because I get really sad when I watch other melee skills and they don't have those fun mechanics. I think Cyclone you might need to tone it back just a little bit, right? I'm okay with that. It might have there's a lot of love that came this time for Cyclone, and it's fine for this league. So nerf the AoE a little bit, like some of the scaling. Okay.
I wouldn't nerf the scaling. I would slow it down.
Yeah,
I think if you made it so that like you'd get stacks, like maybe half as fast or even 1/3
so you
of
have
the
to
speed.
you have to Cyclone for longer. I like that idea.
Because like the thing about a lot of melee builds right now is that the fun of it doesn't come necessarily from the skill itself, but from the positioning and the mobility of your character. And that's why like two-handers also run into a lot of issues, despite the fact that you can totally make a character that scales super well. And they differ a lot in that way. And Cyclone just it does have that cap, which is those stacks, but it's just a little bit too fast. I know this because I run into the same problem with Incinerate, where Incinerate gets its stacks at half the speed of what it should be, and it's pretty ridiculous in how impactful that is, despite the fact that technically you should have enough damage no matter what. And yeah, I think that's kind of the crux with Cyclone.
I don't think they have really nailed the melee stuff just yet. I just gotta say that. I think a lot of the striking skills need love. They need to like really assess how do they want striking skills to work. Because when I see someone with a heavy strike standing right in front of something, it just goes. I get really sad.
What do you mean?
No, do you not see that? There was some guy made a video about he stands there in front of like 2 monsters and he just swings and you just see the animation go straight over, and then the juxtaposition to like the next frame when it's like just full screen AoE Cyclone, and then back to the heavy strike.
I like that. I see.
And it would just be nice if you could feel like that you could make some of the other melee abilities just feel impactful and feel fun to play if you put time and effort into them.
I think one of the things which puts me off. I agree with you a lot. I think one of the things which puts me off a lot is for a lot of the strike abilities as well, I'd feel compelled to run like melee smash and ancestral call, and then you're in the situation where you have to like weapon swap multiple gems out, which just doesn't feel nice.
Why can't I be Haku and do the boom at the other end with my striking skill, right? Why can't that be me? Why do I have to do this thing and then the triple thing? I don't know.
Oh, so maybe more things like what Glacial Hammer has, where you've got like these combos, like you can really build around attack speed, then you swing twice, and then you do a fucking long like cover the whole screen with a third hit.
I think they need to address AoE on melee skill. Like it needs to feel good to hit, like just to get enough cover, without being forced into always ancestral call.
But that's the thing. We did talk about how like nothing else scales with weapon range and AoE, but they do, right? Because it's all the melee splash is the AoE, and then the weapon range is the ancestral call. So it's like, but you do feel like those things are
every skill just ends up feeling like it ends up being like the same melee splash build, just with a slightly different.
It's kind of like I think the saying is a rising tide lifts all boats. So if Cyclone was this much above the other like strike skills already, if everything gets buffed, Cyclone's still this far above, everything else is down here. So it does feel a lot better to play something like a Viper Strike build nowadays, but people are still going to lean into the clean feeling skill, the Cyclone. I don't really think that Cyclone is the problem, though. I want Cyclone to be the bar. I want current Cyclone to be the bar that other melee skills try and reach in terms of how fun it feels to play.
Yeah.
One thing which really disappointed me, because you talked about it a little bit, was the combo things. The third hit of Glacial Hammer should be an Ice Crash. It seems really weird to me that it's like the third hit is just kind of like, and I freeze. Like, that was the thing that was like, you
Yeah,
read it,
weird.
and it's like, I was like, 600% more damage. Oh, wait, it acts as if it did. So it doesn't even do more damage on the third hit. I was like, that's bullshit.
I got that when we were talking, Jonathan. I got that impression on a lot of things that it's gonna be like, oh yeah, combos and stuff. And like, I remember not even thinking that it's a combo, and then somebody in the chat mentioned, I'm like, whoa, it's a combo. I really like that. And then yeah, none of it really came through in that way. So yeah.
But, so on that kind of topic, then, since we talk about how like the melee rework maybe didn't quite land, a lot of people are predicting a ranged attack rework in 3.8. How would you want GGG to do that? Because you don't want them to just buff the power, because bow skills are already very powerful. I think we'd mostly agree it's the fact that we have like Scourge Arrow, Tornado Shot, Ellie Hit, a Cyclone. They feel good. Then everything else feels exactly the same.
I would love to see some new wanding skills. If we're talking about ranged attacks in general, it has been too long. You know, I want to go back to wanding, but there's just nothing there that's interesting to me anymore. Like KB is still perfectly fine for clearing with. It's a great skill for that. Vol Power Siphon is really neat for legions, but I'm just not interested in wanding because there's nothing to pull me back into it anymore. I want them to make something new and interesting on that front.
There's like no way, man. To me,
Why
the
not?
melee rework was a success.
I would say so.
I don't agree that it didn't quite land. I think it landed. I think it needs more time. I think people have to adjust. Hopefully it won't switch over to casters, and that's kind of like my perspective. But like, for the people who don't think it lands, I see no hope for like ranged builds. Like at all. They've tried to rework bows and like range so many times, and every time it's the same skill tree, it's the same play style, it's the same one or two skills, and it's just it's really hard because it's an in between, you know. It has to be between melee and it has to be between a caster and have its own unique feel, and it's just so hard. I think the most impactful thing would be what they did with some of the skills for melee, which is like the slower attacks. But I don't even know if that feels good. Like puncture feels really fucking slow, you know? I don't know if I would enjoy like more bow skills to work like that.
I think they've innovated in the bow space, so to speak, recently. I mean, Scourge Arrow felt like a completely new experience to me when I went for that compared to something like Lightning Arrow or Ice Shot. So I don't know. I think there's space to shift the paradigm somewhat. And I think there's a lot of space in the particularly stagnant part of the game, which is attacking with wands.
Because it's not a thing.
But I want it to be a thing, right? I want it to be more of a thing.
Don't get me wrong.
Really
as somebody who has 2 level 100 wonders, I hear you, but like it's not a thing.
But when I was like new to the game, just the idea of, oh crap, this is like a ranged weapon that I can attack with, this little tiny stick, that's so cool. Like that is something that you don't see too often in other games. Like spellcasting with a wand is of course super common and really what most players think of when they're wielding one, but actually like firing off blasts of kinetic energy, that's just neat conceptually, and I want to see them exploring that space some more.
Yeah, but like would you want more shield stuff to be a thing? Like
more
doesn't
shield?
that yeah, like kind of because shields are like ones now.
I mean, yes.
Yeah. More.
I love
I don't know if
skills.
more is always better. That's the thing.
Do you want to know what I would do? Since I've thought about it a little bit. And I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. Tornado Shot should have a cap on its projectiles. I've said that for years.
Ooh.
Because I feel like if you put a cap on Tornado Shot's projectiles, it'd be way more interesting to build Tornado Shot, because then you'd have to pick on how you're getting your multi-proj. And it would still be super powerful just because mechanically Tornado Shot is good. So for example, if you had it something kind of like it can only ever have 3 additional proj, maybe it gains some proj with the levels. That way you can fucking kill that helm enchant, because I hate that helm enchant with a passion. And then you're like, oh, well maybe I'm going to try and go for like a level 21. Because I think that was one of the best things they did with the melee gems, was having it so you care about levels. I'm expecting them to do something similar for ranged attacks, where you care about levels on your attack gems. So I'd expect them to do something similar to that. So by capping out Tornado Shot, it's still like a powerhouse, but then it's kind of like it can't have the headhunter effect, where it just keeps getting more and more broken the more stuff you can layer on top of it. Make stuff like lightning arrow and ice shot more mechanically unique. So you're like, because a lot of the time it's kind of felt like lightning shot and ice arrow, it's the exact same thing, you just play whichever one you prefer it, because it's just kind of, it's the same fucking right click.
Well, the shape of the damage coming out of the hit is different enough that it does, like with ice shot in particular, you really want to go for a chaining playstyle, so you can have cones facing in random directions in a pack, so there's more likely to be overlap. But with lightning arrow, that's not like as important. You can kind of choose your preference of projectile behavior because it's a little AoE instead of a cone. I don't know. Maybe that's not enough differentiation. That might have been enough differentiation for Path of Exile of a number of years ago.
But like,
but
that's
maybe not
exactly
today.
the point then. So what do? You give fucking ice shot chain. Like, you build it into the skill.
No way.
Yeah.
You're normalizing both skills too much.
Yeah.
Like the reason why it's easy to rework melee is because there's not a whole lot of opportunity of like utilizing it. But with
Yeah.
bows, you can run into the same problem you did with casters, where totems and traps take over, and that's such a big risk, man. I don't know.
Putting
I mean,
caps
it
I
hasn't
don't
been a
like
Don't
thing
we
for
have
a
that
long
currently?
time.
We're just it's just like tornado shot is god if you're doing that, or it's Scourge Jarrett, and then there's Ellie hit if you want to scale it differently.
But you have to like identify what is the problem with the skill. Why does it carry the space? And it's because it's like a multi-purpose skill in the same way Molten Strike is. So you need to address it as such. So you need to like start looking at, okay, what if there's an actual problem here? What is the problem? The problem is probably the fact that it gets so much single target out of just stacking more AoE, because that's essentially what you're doing by stacking more projectiles. So you need to look at, okay, well, how do we address that for something like Molten Strike? I mean, we lower the amount of projectiles, but you don't stop you don't stop anyone from stacking more. I mean, stopping people from like giving a cap is just boring. So you maybe diminishing returns on like every single like bow that converges on the same point, so that it's like there's a cap in terms of how much single target you can achieve, but you can always stack more projectiles. It just doesn't benefit at the higher ends. The same with Toxic Rain. They go further and further out, so they'll never converge on the same point, but you can stack as many projectiles as you want. I think that's much better. Because if you start putting caps on it, it's just there's this, you end up with the same, like, oh, this is the optimal way that you set it up. And it's kind of like, I don't know.
Well,
In terms of
the thing about like making that a baseline, creating a baseline for that is, it's weird to say, but I almost feel like both skills are too unique somehow, where the difference between them is too vast. Where like,
I mean, something
I'm
can
thinking
be
about
strong,
casting, right? Where it's like it's an AoE, it's a Nova, and with a bow you can just say that it's just, you just shoot an arrow. But in a way, they work so vastly differently.
Yeah,
With
they do.
so many like different ways of scaling it, adding more of these things would make the disparity between like a good skill and a bad skill too different, because they don't differ enough skill tree wise. There's realistically only like one way to build it, and one way to really build defense right now too. And so it makes it very obvious to pick out the skill that's mechanically best or has the highest amount of scaling through money, like Tornado Shot.
But then,
And I don't know where you could normalize that.
but like,
It's
that's
so
what I'm
hard.
saying. That's what I'm saying though. So like, if you had it so each ability had more mechanical niche, then it's more obvious where it shines. Like, for example, Lightning Arrow used to be amazing when Poison was a thing because of how quickly it could stack, because the fact it has that overlap effect to it. It used to be really good back then. But then they kind of like...
That didn't matter. Split Arrow was just as good for Poison as Lightning Arrow.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. The reason why Lightning Arrow was good is just because it's good for AoE. It just multi-hits. It's like, okay, Split Arrow in a normal pack will hit everything one time. Lightning Arrow in a normal pack will hit everything 20 times. It's just better for AoE. It doesn't matter if it's Poison or Lightning or whatever. That's not
if it deals
because of
damage over
Poison.
time or instantly. I
It's
mean,
like the
Lightning
same
Arrow
thing.
was
It's
super
like, oh, if
dominant
I
too.
just hit 20 times, my Poison is better than if I hit one. No, it's the same. It's actually the same.
No, I agree with Noogie. I mean, there you could like attribute this to other things too. Like, was that even like Assassin? Like Assassin and Scion, there's some weird shit going on there.
I think no, because of the whole. Maybe it's because I said poison stacking. Because the whole point was the fact that it overlaps. You got way more stacks. If you press lightning arrow once,
stacks don't matter. It's like X amount of damage put in equals X amount of damage come out. So the way you just the reason why poison was good is just double dip. So if you put in like 100 damage, regardless of whether you do it fast or slow, that 100 damage became 500 on the poison. That's why. And you could do it on split arrow. Lightning arrow is just a good AoE skill, so it felt really good. And then you could do it with Vortexic, so it fit well into that, the lightning conversion thing. So it's just a natural skill to fit that. It does. Lightning arrow is just like general. It's not good for poison more than split arrow is.
Well, the thing is, too, it's situational.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard. And I mean, we're talking about like different metas now and everything. It's like difficult to really.
I want to pull out the Frostwall card, but I mean, you were arguing.
Dan is looking at this, and they're just like, just get more attack speed. It's more stacks, lol. Like, I think everybody's kind of missing everybody's point.
Okay, but one thing I will say, and I think we'll all agree on this, and 100% factual. The best and only reason why 3.8 should focus on ranged attacks, they would finally rework the greatest skill in Path of Exile, Explosive Arrow.
That would be nice.
I miss it, dude. I fucking miss that ability so much. I
played it once, back when it was really strong.
It was
I did not like the playstyle at all.
Oh. Explosive Arrow, in my mind,
really unique skill.
Is one of the most iconic PoE abilities.
I'd love for it to be strong, because it is really interesting and mechanically cool, but it was not my cup of tea when I played it.
I know how they can make it interesting.
Go on.
Unleash for bows.
Jesus, that sounds scary. Bow builds already have access to like the best support gem in the game in the form of Mirage Archer.
Maybe you can't support both. I don't know. Maybe you have to choose then.
I'm going to make an explosive arrow necromancer and show you guys it's still good.
Do it. Is that your next build, Raiz? Confirm.
Glancing blows, explosive arrow, necromancer, scaling attack speed and minion damage, no problem. Okay. Hey, I'll use those precious Vol Jewels and make it crazy.
Okay. Right, Scree, start work on the overlay for that video, dude. Oh no, that's it.
Hey, no, I'm playing Bladestorm.
No.
Like 3 builds. I want to play Bladestorm so bad.
Explosive arrow necromancer.
Fun.
God damn it.
I think there's on the topic of how do they like further their bow agenda. I think there's plenty of things they can do. I mean, they just need to look at what they did with melee and spells, right? And I think most of it will come down to not the skills themselves. I mean, they can add flat scaling or some skills, but honestly, I'm not a big fan of that because it kind of dictates how you play the skill, which is not very PoE-like. So I'm actually not a fan of the whole flat fizz. Flat fizz is okay, but the whole Ellie thing just kind of weirds me out.
Oh, that some abilities get flat lightning,
yeah,
and you're like,
so
I want to convert it, but I can't.
Yeah.
No,
It just kind of like puts you into this like really weird, like, oh, they told me that this is how I should play the skill. I don't like it when PoE does that, tells me how to play something. That just, it's not very PoE to
Doesn't
me.
like Infernal Blow gain flat fire or something?
Yeah.
That pisses me off because I was like, oh, Infernal Blow face breakers, and I'm like, this shit because it's not flat fizz.
And I think Frostblades is flat cold, and Static Strike is flat lightning. Something like.
Lightning Strike is the
lightning strike. There you go.
Obviously, there's opportunity there as well that you could just grab onto. Maybe I'm just being ridiculous. I don't know, but I don't know. I like being able to just convert anything into the way I want it.
See, I was on your side before this league when it came to the conversion stuff because it just made no sense to me. And now the more I'm playing it, it almost feels like a necessity. There's so many weird scenarios now where you don't like fully convert and you half convert. And it just makes sense. Like I was playing Static Strike and everybody was like, pick up Winter Spirit, get lightning, fist to lightning. And I'm just like, well, why? Like it doesn't really accomplish anything. So I feel like it's a necessity because they didn't want people locked into like impale and brutality and just like get a sword.
These are conversion skills already. they scale poorly with Impale anyways, just by
yeah, of course, yeah. But that kind of like, in a way, it means that you almost can't use a skill if you don't have these other like opportunities to do this in a unique way. And so, yeah, it's really weird. Like elemental conversion on attack skills and like just elemental attack builds in general. I feel like very unexplored right now. At least I don't fully like grasp the entire concept yet, for sure. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. Maybe with enough time.
One thing.
Time to play some chieftain.
Yeah.
Truth. But then you fully convert, and I don't think that's good. I mean, on fire it's good. On lightning, it's good for softcore. Less super hard, because it's like you just end up with a build with like 5k life and 3 million damage, and you're just 0 mitigation. But you can mitigate in such cool ways now. I don't know.
One thing that I did want to ask, and I had this question in my stream the other day, do you think they actually can kill the whole fizz to lightning to cold to fire added as chaos?
Yes.
Yeah, they could if they wanted to.
Why have we still got it? I didn't get it. Does that add anything to the game?
I mean, I think it's a purposely built-in bit of identity to some of the, like to Trickster in particular. Like you've got a whole wing of the Ascendancy that's devoted to that sort of thing. So,
well, but that's I can see how they would remove it before, but like, what's a big problem now with it?
They've brought pure fizz scaling up to the point where it's competitive or stronger in a lot of cases. I don't know that it's problematic anymore. They've kind of just said, okay, that's very powerful. We'll just put the power level there.
I don't know. It kind of feels like to me that I'm either playing pure fizz or I need to do as many conversion chains as possible to add to chaos.
Yeah, but that's on a caster, no?
Yeah.
If you do that, yeah, because you can't really do that a whole lot with other setups. Because like weapons, I was trying to do some of that with like the cold conversion spectral shield throw, and there's just not a lot that you can do. Everything is either physical extra as X element, but not really chaos. The weapons limit you quite a bit.
It's just like, going back to my lightning trapper, because I'm using 2 wands with 20% of Elia's chaos, I feel like I just have to convert it. It feels like I'm playing it wrong by not converting it to cold. And that just seems weird to me. It's perfectly fine. It's still the most powerful mod that I can craft on a wand, but it's just like, if I just equip a Call of the Brotherhood, I see my damage just shoot way the fuck up.
That comes at a high cost, though, right? Like
rings, yeah.
Rings are pretty powerful nowadays.
I'm using like multi-modded curse on hit rings, and still it's like putting in Call the Brotherhood's like 20% more damage, and it's like my rings are pretty good, but
you're losing some defensive value there, though. You can get like a good life roll, minimum endurance charges if you're multi-modding. There's some powerful stuff you can grab. If you're mind over matter, there's like mana recovered when hit or minus mana cost or something. But I don't know, like flat Ellie stacking, just pure elemental, is still perfectly viable for everything in the video game that you need to do.
I mean, I do enough damage to kill everything, so it's not an issue. But it's that issue where it's kind of like when you know that you can. You one-shot the mob anyway, but you're like, I could one-shot it harder, so I feel like I have to do this one
that's chain. A decision point, right? Like, you can't kill an enemy more than them being dead.
I can kill it harder. I can put it deeper in the ground, Octavian.
This is why I love Delve. This is why I deep delve like every league, because you winnow away at your DPS. You chip off a little bit here, a little bit there. You're like, I don't I really need 1.2 million? Can I do 1.1 million and maybe get like another little bit of fortify effect in my build, or get like a better craft on my ring for a minimum endurance charge or some crap? And that is the fun part of Path of Exile for me. Like, that's why I enjoy hardcore whenever I go to it, and it's why I push my builds to the upper bounds of what the game can offer when I'm playing in softcore, because I think the problem actually lies in the base game with top-end builds not being challenging enough.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a bit of an elitist saying that. It's kind of difficult to escape that feeling, because I'm sure for a lot of players it is plenty challenging. But if we're talking about a min-maxed build, there's not much outside of pushing massive floors of delve that's going to be that level of challenge.
No, I agree. That was actually something I had on top of this that we skipped over, but it's like the core game is easy, and we've been getting a lot of our difficulty ever since Abyss from the league mechanics.
Well, it's easy for the accomplished player base, which I think there's more of a gulf now than ever before in PoE's history between the accomplished player base and your casual player, because there's so many layers of meta mechanics. Like, not only do you have to grasp how to build a good character and like what skills are good and what you might want to build around, and the atlas and all that basic core stuff, you also have to like do that while encountering betrayal, and do that while encountering abysses, and do that while encountering delve as a system. And I've had some friends who are like 1,000+ hours in the game from a few leagues ago come back this league and just be bumbling nincompoops because there's so much stuff that they still need to grasp.
It's a two-way street though, right? Because even though there's a lot more stuff, the player base has also grown, and there's like a lot more accessibility of information. Like there's you just can do a lot more. But I can totally see that if it wasn't one of your friends and just like a person. But that's like, isn't that always going to be the case, right? Like PoE is always going to be just, everybody's going to be the difference between the top player and like a new player.
I just think it's worth pointing out that because of the level of scaling of power that we've gotten from things like delve and from things like particularly synthesis, but that obviously didn't go core, like the top end potential power is really, really high now. So you have players who are accomplished that are capable of just demolishing everything at a whim. The gulf is wider than it's ever been, and I don't know that that's, it's very difficult to design in such a way that you solve problems at the top end for people who feel like they aren't being challenged, and people who feel like they don't have, you know, meaningful choices to be made in their build, because whatever choice they make, they can min-max it to the point where it's going to destroy everything, while also making that relevant for the majority of your player base. Like maybe you just don't. You just say, there's delve, go play in that. You know, I'm trying to look at this from an outside perspective, from a perspective that isn't necessarily my own subjective one, because I want to say, give me more toys, give me more endgame stuff, give me more cool stuff to do that's going to challenge and murder my build potentially. But if that sort of thing does get added to the core game, there's a very realistic possibility that it just ends up having the opportunity cost of murdering a large portion of the rest of the player base who isn't in a position to be able to deal with it. You know, if we go back and we revert nerfs on Legion to the point where like the Vol Wall of Death is one-shotting any build that isn't massively stacking mitigation, most of the player base is going to have a horrible experience with that. And like, sure, it's going to be more challenging for the small portion, but I don't think that's worth it.
That's not the challenge you want either. That's not the kind of challenge.
Yeah, no, maybe that was specifically a bad example, but
yeah.
What I'm saying is, if we make things that are capable, like if we make things in the base game, so I'm including basically everything in the Atlas here, so up to T16s, that are capable of killing your like Nebulock endurance charge stacking Juggernaut, or your Max Block Gladiator, or your Herald of Agony Occultist. If you put things in T16 maps that are capable of killing that, you're going to have a lot of fucking collateral damage.
Because then it's like you then have to play that build to do that content, because if you're just the average 6k life guy, you're just getting no chance. But no, I think a lot of it comes down to like player aspiration. I think I have a similar kind of outlook that Octavian has. Like if I see like, oh, Octavian's hit 1k delve, then I'm like, oh, well that makes me want to push my build, because then maybe I could do that. Or like if I see the insane 5-way emblem fight, I don't look at that as in, oh, I'm not allowed to have fun. But it's kind of like you have the aspiration of maybe one day I could be that good, so you want to keep playing. And I think a lot of it just falls down to where you fall on that spectrum of the aspiration. I don't know.
I think Legion came in this league quite well in terms of giving, you know, the endgame players a challenge in high maps, because I'm still scared even with my good builds when I pop a 16 Legion with like some damage mods. I mean, that's I'm like, okay, I'm gonna open everything, and it's gonna be hell on earth, right? So it's not like they don't have it, and I think Legion did that in a good way to give us some of that content. It's not all the ways to like what Synthesis gave us in terms of like ridiculousness in terms of in-game content, but I don't think it was that far off. We have more choice over taking that on, at least.
One thing I'd like to ask you, because this argument often comes up, like we had, I'm pretty sure Ziz said this on your podcast, Niggy, well, your other podcast, Niggy, at the start, and he was complaining that pre-nerf Legion was scarier than Shaper, as if kind of like, oh, well, that's terrible. Then it's like, well, we need to make Shaper harder then, right? Where do you guys fall on that? Like, do you feel like we need to make the Shapers and the Uber Elders harder? Or do the endgame bosses, should that be the peak difficulty and everything else needs to be easier in comparison? I'd rather they bring the bosses up, personally.
I don't think it's related at all. Like, it used to be that like the game's mapping system was a build up to a boss, and they made it very apparent with Shaper, but I think those two things are like super separate now because of just the way people are optimizing their gameplay, and you almost like don't just want to make a random character, you want to make like a character that does one or the other well, at least in my impression. But maybe that's because like that's how it works in hardcore. Maybe everybody else in softcore is more like the Mathil style, where you just make characters that can do everything and there is a build up.
That's kind of what I'm saying though earlier, that like it's hard to get out of the mindset that Uber Elder is getting power crept on, and Uber Elder is not too hard of a benchmark to reach anymore. I think for a lot of people, Uber Elder is still like quite a difficult benchmark.
Oh yeah, it is.
So I think we can pretty safely leave that where it is and sequester away the things that are significantly more challenging in some of the systems where you're not going to have players that won't be able to handle that stumbling into it, so to speak. You know, you're never going to accidentally in the middle of a map find an all from depth 600 or something. I don't know, maybe I'm not getting my point across very clearly.
I know, I get what you mean. So I guess the question really should be is, should we just keep making more bosses and just keep treating it that way? Because I find it kind of interesting from a game point of view, because I imagine someone like Chris or Jonathan feels quite strongly about it, that like if you've made a game and like the main end boss of your game is Shaper and Elder, for them not to be the hardest thing in the game seems really fucking weird. Like Itziri, like Uber Itziri is still scary, but like Itziri is such a cakewalk now that it's kind of like it doesn't line up at all, and that probably bothers them quite a lot as developers. I don't know. I could be talking rubbish, but
there's room even just like lore wise, not that that's a huge deal, but even just like lore wise for them to go for the next big boss, because after you kill Uber Elder,
he's just
Zana
like,
says something along the lines of,
yeah,
he was being controlled by something else, which they probably just left in to give themselves space to go to that next boss, but they could just go to that next level, you know? Like there's Shaper, there's Uber Elder, and then there's Uber Duber Super Elder. Above that, probably give him a different name than that, but you can use it if you want, GGG.
Like, you can make this argument for everything. If they have to buff up like Elder, then they're gonna have to buff up Itziri, and like it's just gonna be this never-ending streak. So I think they're just gonna keep adding bosses, and I think that makes the most sense. The game is progressing so rapidly. Shit, give us more stuff like that.
And I think I really
fly to the breach world and kill the Uber breach guy. I don't know.
And that's probably what 4.0
they did warm up to that. Like that was the thing a little bit where they were like, Abyss, like what's underneath, Harbinger discovered the secret language and you know, figure out the big thing, what's behind the portals, where these dudes coming from. I mean, shit, I think they've got a lot of room for that.
And I think they really want to work on designing some more mechanically intense boss fights, because they gave us instant reaction movement skills and things like Steel Skin and Vol Molten Shell. We have these incredibly powerful tools for boss fights now. I really want to see them design some tough as nails bosses, mechanically speaking, so that we have a good reason for Vol Molten Shell to give you a 20,000 shield. That's a really good button. Vol Molten Shell is a very good button.
It's a very good one.
My 5k life build loves it. I'll tell you that.
I'm really excited for Mega Evolution Argus. That's going to be hype.
Isn't that the one already down in Delves? The magma Argus that you can find guarding faceted fossils.
That is a thing.
I fought one of those things a few days ago at depth 970 or something, and I tell you what, I am like 50 times more scared of that than any all I've encountered. Because you can sidestep or you can dash past him. Like, yeah, he'll one-shot me if I let him touch me, but all telegraphs his attacks. Argus just walks up and punches you. Like, he doesn't have some fancy cone that you can sidestep out of. He just punches you. And if you're at depth 1,000, you just die unless you block that or have Vol Molten Shell up.
Yeah, I saw Empyrean do it with his party when they saw it for the first time. It was like a video. They had like 27,000 energy shield, and he just like walked up to 3 of them and just went pump pump pump, and they all died instantly. Like, dude, what?
You can like kite him around and stuff, but I'm playing Cyclone Reckoning, so I don't really have that option.
Nice.
Just get more AoE, dude.
Just going with my 81% block chance and hope I win.
Just get more damage so that you need to block less times. That's the correct way to go.
If I can kill him in the 10 seconds of Vol Molten Shell, I win. If I can't, then I don't. Basic.
God. I've been thinking about switching to softcore lately.
Really?
You just brought up the perfect argument for why I wouldn't. It's like, if I do, then I do. If I don't, then I don't. It's like
most of the push down to 1K wasn't like that. It was like the last 50-60 floors that got really rough. I wasn't 100% sure the build could make it there. I just really enjoyed playing it, so I wanted to push it. But like, if I were min-maxing to try and make the best deep delving thing, it would be Juggernaut. Juggernaut is so good right now.
Nebulock.
Like Nebulock, you can do a lot of different things with it. If you want to do Herald of Agony, Juggernaut, that's also great because they added those new gloves, or they buffed the gloves that let you get corpse explosions now. The physical corpse explosions. What are they called? Gentle Touch. Yeah. Getting corpse explosion effects on non-occultist Herald of Agony is absolutely massive.
Isn't the cold and lightning taken as fire jewel meant to be like insane for delving?
It's pretty damn nice if you can find the room in your build to. Oh, the one taken as fire. Sorry, I thought you meant the chaos one.
No,
that's how my brain immediately.
Yeah.
I've not seen someone using that one yet, but no, it could have potential.
I don't even remember what it does.
Isn't delve mostly just cold and lightning damage though?
But the problem is that you cap out at 90% anyways. So it's like
everything is cold and lightning.
You could just cap your cold and not deal with the conversion. It is nice though, like all the conversion stuff is always good against pen, but pen is just gonna fuck your fire rest then anyways, so you're still.
I'm curious that you mentioned that though, Raiz. Would you be thinking of going into a trade league or doing what I do where you run like a private league or some shit?
What do you mean? The software thing?
Yeah.
No, it's more like a business choice than anything else.
Yeah, I know, but like if you were to do it though, would you go into softcore trade or would you do what I do and you do a softcore private league?
Oh, for sure, softcore trade.
Oh?
Yeah, private leagues are. I mean, it's interesting, right? But I kind of feel like I get a lot of it through just the ridiculous amount of SSF that I've done by now. And yeah, I kind of always end up finding the things that I want in the long run, or tricking myself into thinking that I've got the right things for whatever I wanted to do that I didn't really, but now I have the thing, so I do want to do it. Like, I don't know. So yeah, if anything, it would be that. Private leagues are really cool though. I just like them a lot more in like a racing environment, in like a a fresh league start. That's really what I get out of them. And I want more, as many of those as possible. I've been through however many leagues Path of Exile has had now, and that fresh league start, I always come back for it, and nothing really replaces it. So if I can get it, nice.
Since we have talked around the houses quite a lot, does anyone have anything else they would like to talk about that we've skipped over?
Nope, not really.
Vol Molten Shell is very good.
Is it very good?
Say it one more
It's
time.
getting
to
there
make
for
sure.
sure.
The people in the back.
Okay, what would be the bare minimum armor? If I was like, Octavian, I want to go for Molten Shell, is the bare minimum that it's worth doing?
I mean, Raiz isn't wrong. Like, just granite flask of iron skin and maybe a couple armor items, and you're already at a point where Vol Molten Shell is going to be a super powerful button to press.
Okay.
The more you can get, kind of the better, though. It's not that much opportunity cost. You just get some like armor base items in your build. Like, I'm not getting the best armor bases across every piece of gear. You know, I don't have Titan's items, Titan gauntlets, Titan greaves, whatever they're called. I don't have. I think I do have an Eternal version A base, but that was just because that was what was enchanted with what I wanted. Like, you don't have to go all out. You need moderate investment for it to be really strong.
Okay.
Listen, the answer to this question in all reality is that if you're considering fitting determination in your build, and most likely it's a good thing, you know that shit's fucked up. Like, it's just crazy.
I mean, what is it? Is Vol Molten Shell 60 or 75% of the damage you take goes to the Vol Molten Shell
60.
when it's active? 60. So it's like a 10 to 20k life pool fairly easily. That's like effectively mind over matter at 60%. You know? It's like pressing a button and getting 60% effectiveness mind over matter for 10
It is
I
80.
is saying 80.
Yeah. It is 80. I'm like,
There
I
you
said
go.
60, and then I was like, wait a minute, something doesn't seem right there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that case then, I would like to thank everyone for watching. Run Vol Molten Shell in all of your builds. No question, every build has to run Vol Molten Shell. And we'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Bye.
Right, this is the bit where me and Raiz call each other cunts, and then we have this little back and forth, and it's like press the
You already
outro.
called me a cunt, so it's okay.
You can tell I've beat him down in our relationship. He's just given up fighting at this point. Feels good.
Yeah, that's that point. I'm past it. You know, I'm over it.
Yeah.